Good morning again. This is not a case of who done it. The person who done it, the person who committed this killing, sits in court today. It's the defendant, Jodi and Arias. And the person that she done it to is an individual by the name of Travis Victor Alexander, a former boyfriend of hers, an individual that she was in love with, an individual that was a good man, an individual that was one of the greatest blessings in her life. And this love, well, she rewarded that love for Travis Victor Alexander by sticking a knife in his chest. And you know, he was a good man according to her. And with regard to being a good man, well, she slit his throat as a reward for being a good man. And in terms of these blessings, well, she knocked the blessings out of him by putting a bullet in his head during one event that occurred on June 4th of 2008. Travis Alexander had the misfortune of meeting up with the defendant in Las Vegas, Nevada at the MGM Grand back in September of 2006. They were both involved with a group called PPL, or Prepaid Legal. And basically what this organization did is they went out and they sold units, if you will. And basically it was a situation where people would buy these units and they would be covered for legal purposes should the need arise. And they met, as I said, in September of 2006. And after the meeting, it is true that Mr. Alexander began to have contact with the defendant. And he began sort of to pursue her. But it is also true, or an indication anyway, that initially he was mostly interested in converting her to the Mormon faith. You see, he was a Mormon. He had also been a Mormon for some time. And one of the few first things that he did when he began to talk to her initially is that he gave her the Book of Mormon. And a lot of the time that they had was spent on reading this Book of Mormon, talking about it, and so that their religious relationship progressed to a point, and it was a very rapid religious relationship, that it progressed to the point that in November, approximately 2 months later, in November of 2006, the defendant chose to become a Mormon. And the process that you undergo to do that is you become baptized. And so she was baptized in November of 2006. And the person that she chose to baptize her was none other than Travis Alexander, the person that she had met up with, the person who had introduced her to this faith, and the person that she was beginning to get closer with. And so their relationship progressed after that point, and it became a much more personal relationship. Now they were both Mormons, and there are certain guidelines for Mormons that you'll hear about. Specifically, one of them is that there's not to be any sexual contact before marriage. That's considered a very large sin. I guess in the grand scheme of things, that's one of the sins that you need to avoid. But their relationship began to progress, and it was a very personal relationship. At that time, as their relationship progressed, the defendant was not living in the Arizona area. In fact, she lived in the Palm Springs area of California. And so it was sort of like a long-distance relationship. They would call each other, they would send text messages, they would email each other. And so their relationship blossomed that way. And occasionally they would see each other. He would drive out there, or they would somehow meet. Well, by February of 2007, they became sort of an item. They agreed to just continue dating each other, just to see each other and not anybody else. And as part of that, one of the things that happened is that they both did what is not expected, but what usually can be expected to happen between two young people. They began to engage in sexual relations. And obviously that is against the Mormon faith. And it provided conflict for both of them. That here they were sinning, if you will, all the time, whenever they would get together, and yet professing to be good Mormons on the other hand. But that's sort of how their relationship was at that point. Well, they continued this relationship for about 5 months, from February 2007 to about June of 2007. And in June, to be exact, using her telling, June 29th of 2007, the defendant couldn't help herself. She was a snoop, just couldn't help herself. And what she did is she went and got a hold of Mr. Alexander's phone, his cellular telephone. And she wanted to see what was in there. Couldn't stop herself from doing that, and so she goes and looks at his cell phone in June of 2007. And she's looking for things to see whether or not there's going to be any contact with any other women. She describes him as being flirtatious, and she wanted to know what was going on and wanted to see if there was anything in that cell phone that would confirm her suspicions about his flirtations. And she found things there that she didn't like. But it was her going into his cell phone snooping. She did it surreptitiously. She did it without his knowledge because she wanted to know. She just couldn't help herself. And so she looks in there and finds things that she doesn't like. And at that point, they break up. That's June 29th of 2007. And remember, at that time, she's still living in Southern California in the Palm Spring area. After they broke up, you would expect that perhaps the emails would end, you would expect that perhaps the text messages would end, and maybe that the calls would attenuate. But just the opposite happens. Because instead of staying there in Southern California, or perhaps moving to where she was originally from, which is Wairika, California, which is on the Oregon-California border, instead of going there after this breakup in June of 2007, what does the defendant do? She moves to Mesa. She moves to Mesa so she can be closer to him. This individual that she does not trust, this individual whose phone she's gone and looked into, and this individual who she's just broken up, what does she do? Let's go to Mesa. Not only does she move to Mesa, but she moves to an area that's very close to his. And she is not in the same ward, but she does move to an area that's very close to where he is. And of course, the relationship continues. They continue to talk. They continue to text message each other. They continue the emails. And oh yes, they continue the sexual liaisons because she moved here. Well, this continues on for some time, but Mr. Alexander, by this point, appears to be ready to move on, or at least he appears to be ready to date other people. And in fact, he starts dating somebody by the name of Lisa Andrews, and there may have been others that he started to date. But at that point, there was no relationship between him and the defendant other than this constant contact and this sexual relationship between the two. This relationship that was facilitated, this sexual relationship that was facilitated by her move to the Mesa area. Well, this continues for some time until April of 2008. So in June of 2007, she moves here, and we fast forward to April of 2008, when finally the relationship seems to have run its course. It seems to have run its course because the defendant has finally decided to move to where her hometown is, a small town by the name of Wairika, California. And again, it's about 1,000 miles away from Mesa. And what she does before she leaves is she spends about a week with Mr. Alexander. And yes, according to her, they do have sexual intercourse. They continue that course of conduct. And she rents a U-Haul. And there's an agreement between the two of them involving Mr. Alexander's automobile, a BMW. And basically, he gives it to her, but not really giving, in the sense that she has to pay him. And she has to pay him an undetermined amount of money per month for this BMW that is his. He actually then buys a Prius, a black Prius. And so in early April of 2008, she loads up that U-Haul. Her mother may have come out here, but left before that. And then straps the BMW behind it. Doesn't get very far before there's a problem. The BMW starts leaking oil and all these kinds of things because she left it in first gear and cannot be towed. So now the BMW is destroyed and it goes to some sort of shop. But she leaves it, but she's still basically going to pay for that BMW because she's the individual that was in control of it. But that's still sort of up in the air about that. Well, you would have thought that once she moved to Wairika, which is approximately 1,000 miles away, you would have thought that their relationship would have been over. No, it wasn't over. They continued to talk. They continued to send text messages, emails, instant messaging, and oh yes, there's the phone sex that she records of them when they are engaged in that particular conduct. And it's the phone sex that she keeps. Well, 2 short months after that April of 2008, when she moved to Wairika, in June 9th of 2008, the police get a 911 call. The Mesa Police Department receives a 911 call. And the person calling on the other line is an individual by the name of Marie Hall. And Marie Hall is an individual that Mr. Alexander has taken an interest in. She is somebody that is very much in the faith. She's somebody that is in his singles ward, so that they go and they sit around and they socialize and they talk about the Mormon doctrine. And so she's somebody that he feels much affinity to. And he starts to court her. And again, this is when the defendant is already in Wairika. He begins to look at her, and the relationship with Lisa Andrews is now over. And so he begins to take her out. There's a total of 3 dates that they go on. But for her, there's really no spark there. She's not interested in the slightest in him. Not only is she not interested in the slightest in him, she lets him know about it. It's not like she's going to sit there and just continue to go out with him and hang out and that sort of thing. No, they go out one time, they go back to a bookstore and they drink hot chocolate. There's no contact at all. There's not even sometimes what is considered the obligatory goodnight kiss. There's none of that. And she lets him know, I'm just not interested in you. And in fact, she starts to date somebody else. After she breaks up with that person, Mr. Alexander feels that perhaps there's a chance with him. And so they go out one more time and they go to a crafts kind of thing where they put a pot together, that's the kind of thing. Or they go rock climbing. That's the extent of their dating relationship. He's interested, she is not, but there's never any physical contact. This sort of with other people with the PPL, a trip to Cancun. And he's allowed to take somebody with him. And so he approaches this Marie or Mimi Hall about going with him to Cancun. She says, no, I really don't want to go because I don't want you to believe that there's something going on between us. I really don't want to go there. But he tells her that that's not how it is. They're going to go as friends. In fact, they're even going to be in different bedrooms. So it's a situation where she's been to Cancun before. She wants to go. It was fun. So she doesn't see any harm in going. And so the trip that they're supposed to go on is supposed to start on the 10th of June. And so she's the one that's on the phone on June 9th. And she hasn't spoken to Mr. Alexander for about a week, since June 2nd, which is a Monday. And it's strange to her because the trip is impending, and he usually would call her every day or send text messages or maybe email her. So it was strange that he hadn't called her, but she really didn't think anything of it. You know, since they were only going to go as friends, what's the big deal, right? And so when she doesn't hear from him up until the night before they're to go, which is the 9th, which is a Tuesday, well, a Monday, one of the things she does is she goes over on that Monday night. And when she goes over there, she goes and knocks on the door. And she knocks on the door very, very hard. Well, nobody answers. The only thing that she sees is the dog. The dog Napoleon, which is Mr. Alexander's dog, comes up to the door, just sort of throwing himself up on the door very excitedly. And she can tell that there's something wrong here. But nobody answers the door, and she doesn't know how to get in. Now there's 4 of them. There's Mimi Hall, her girlfriend, and these 2 other individuals, 2 men. They open the door, and when they open the door, Marie Hall stays behind, and the 2 men go inside. But she's able to see through the crack all this blood that's in the hallway. And the 2 individuals come out running excitedly and saying, "There's blood here, and that's Travis. He's in the shower. He's dead." And that's the reason that Marie Hall was on the telephone that evening of June 9th, 2008, calling the police to let them know that the person that she was going to go to Cancun with the next day, this friend of hers from the church, Travis Alexander, was dead. Well, of course, the police responded. And one of the things that they were able to note, and I do have a diagram so that maybe you can follow closer what I'm saying. I told you that, and this is exhibit number 249. I told you that Marie Hall and her friends went to this door, and this is the door. As you can see there, looking there, that's a big red spot. And there was lots of blood that you could also see here. And of course the body is found on the lower right-hand corner in the shower. It wasn't standing, it wasn't anything, it was all just sort of hunched in. And one of the things that struck the investigators when they first went in there and they started looking at this is that the scene had been staged. It had been manipulated. Whoever had been the killer of this scene had manipulated that scene. And the police knew that that scene had been manipulated, first of all, by where the body was found. The body was found inside the shower, and the killing had obviously taken place somewhere else because there was blood all around the bottom here in the southern part. Right there on the sink, it is clear that the victim had stood over that and bled. And in fact, down here, it was also clear that he had bled there, and there were some drag marks down that hallway. So somebody had taken the time to manipulate, stage, change the appearance of the scene by placing the body there. The other thing that was notable about the staging of the scene was that whoever had done this killing had also taken the time to wash the body down. And it appeared that the person who had done this actually washed the body down with this big cup, had taken it and had poured it all over the body so that basically there was almost no blood on the body. It was just bloated from decomposition, but the area here, the cut that they were subsequently going to see, there was no real blood anywhere. So it was clear that somebody had cleaned him up such that whatever evidence was there is not going to be there anymore because the body had been washed. The other thing that they noted was that if this body is in such bad condition, there was no knife there. It appears there were cuts, and it appears there was a shot. And the gun wasn't there either. So somebody had also removed those from the scene, had taken the time, had thought this out enough to say, I'm going to take the gun and I'm going to take the knife away. Additionally, what this person had done was that they had taken, possibly, and it's consistent with the glass, had taken the glass and had just poured water down the hallway, down this area, because boxes that were on the ground level in this closet area here were actually soaked in water and blood. And additionally, what they were able to see was that down here, this big, large mass of blood with the 45 on there, well, that also had a lot of water in it. That was diluted blood. Somebody had taken the time to actually try to clean that. Not only that, the items have been moved. For example, there was a scale. And the scale underneath it had drops of blood that somebody had, somehow the blood had gotten there. The scale had been turned over. The mat, the same thing. There was blood underneath. So somebody had taken a considerable amount of time, however much time that would be, to stage that part of the scene. But they weren't through with that part of the staging of the scene. Because what they ended up doing is they took, and there was a matching set of towels there, What they did is they took one of the towels and began to wipe the area there. We don't know exactly what area was wiped down, but the towel is red and has this reddish substance to it. Not only did they wipe it down with that towel, but they took all of the bedding from this king-size bed, and they took that along with this towel and walked it downstairs to that washer as you walk in, and stuck it in there. And what was also notable for the police in terms of what was staged and what was manipulated was that here in this closet and in this bedroom where the bed was, that had not been manipulated. In other words, there was no blood there, but the covers had been taken, anything that was on there had been taken and placed into that washing machine. There were also some of the victim's clothing that was in that washing machine. And also, interestingly enough, in that washing machine downstairs was a camera. And this camera, unfortunately, had been put through the wash. And everybody that's familiar with the washing, that's not a very gentle sort of process. And the camera was destroyed. It was all messed up. It would never take any pictures again. So that's one of the things that confronted, or that the police were able to see. The other thing that they were able to find came from the body. Things that they needed to know. And one of the things that they noted from that was that this was a very violent attack that took some time. The reason that it was a very violent attack is that there were 3 ways that he was killed. It wasn't just one shot, it was more than that. And what the medical examiner was able to find was, his name's Kevin Horn, was that there was a stab to the heart area that was not immediately or rapidly fatal. And what that means is he's stabbed and he still lives. He still can walk. He can still stand. He can still grab. He can still speak. That's not immediately fatal. And it's not rapidly fatal. The other thing that the medical examiner found, but it would kill him, this stab to the heart. The other thing that the medical examiner found was that his throat was slit from ear to ear. And that one was rapidly fatal, which means it would have killed him very quickly because of the blood loss. Not only would it have killed him very quickly, but he would not have gained or had consciousness for a very long period of time. He would have almost immediately have lapsed into unconsciousness. So the one to the throat. Well, and the one to the head, well, again, since that involved the brain, and although the body was decomposed, according to the medical examiner, that one was also rapidly fatal. And additionally, he would lose consciousness immediately. Based on that, and based on the fact that Mr. Alexander in his hands had what the medical examiner is going to term as defensive wounds. In other words, Mr. Alexander did not die calmly. He fought. Whoever this person was that had killed him, he had fought, which meant that he was conscious at the time. So what that meant is that with regard to the injuries that were inflicted, according to the medical examiner, the first injury was the one to the heart. And when that was inflicted, Mr. Alexander at some point began to fight. And what he was able to do was grab the knife, but he grabbed the blade of the knife so that he has cuts in his hand as he's fighting, presumably for his life. They're called defensive wounds. And given that there was blood over the sink that we have over here, and that the sink is waist level, and that blood is coming down from a source, Mr. Alexander was able to get out from where he was standing at this point, go over to the sink, stand there and bleed. But those aren't the only wounds that he had. He had a grouping of wounds back here behind his neck, on his shoulders. He had some on his head. He had some on his ears. He had some here too. And by here I mean his front torso area. So the first hit, if you will, was to the heart area. And he was walking around. He was grabbing the knife. He was trying to defend himself. And that's why they call them defensive wounds. Given the blood spatter pattern, he ended up over here where the .45 was. And when he ended up there, that's when his throat was slit. And he was still alive, and we know that because of the amount of blood that was there. So whoever had done it basically followed him around, gone to where that 45 is, went to finish him off and cut his throat. But they weren't through with him. What they did is, this individual then, killer, dragged him this way, towards the area of the sink. And in that area of the sink, where that number 1 is, right in that general area, and according to the medical examiner, by that time, he was probably most likely dead, finished the job as if it needed to be finished. Because the first wound, even though it wasn't rapidly fatal, was going to be fatal. The second one, for sure, was totally fatal. The third one, well, took a shot, stuck it in his temple, and the body was, at that point, more likely than not dead. So Mr. Alexander probably didn't feel that one. What you know, and you'll see, is that there's a number 1 here. One of the things that was there was a 25 caliber casing, which means that the gun that was used was a 25 caliber. Even though police were not able to recover the gun, they know that it was a 25 caliber handgun. So that's what they have in this particular area. But you can have all of that. You now know that it was Mr. Alexander. You now know how he died. But you really don't know the time. You haven't narrowed that down. And quite frankly, you don't know the identity, one of the most important things, of the person who may have done this. And so police were kind of left there to guess. And you can lift all of the fingerprints you want in the world, but if you don't have anybody to compare that to, you're not going to know who the person was. And you can get all of the blood and DNA samples that you want, saliva, any biological substance that you want, but if you don't have it to compare to a known sample, that really doesn't get you any nearer to solving this crime, to find out who the person was that had actually killed this individual. Well, the police then went downstairs and they found this camera. And as I told you, this camera was destroyed. But one of the things that they were able to do is they were able to take out a very small item. It's a SIM card, which is really the brain of the camera. And this camera had been recently purchased by Mr. Alexander. He had bought it between April of 2008 and his killing, because according to the defendant, she actually advised him via the phone while he was making this purchase of this camera so that he would get a really good camera. Well, this really good camera was in the washer. It was destroyed. It wasn't going to take any pictures anymore. So the police really seem to have nothing except the SIM card. And the SIM card has gotten wet. It has gone through the cycle. And so what ends up happening, what ends up happening is that they get this SIM card. And with this SIM card, they are able to find, and you're going to hear the term encase. They're able to put it through this process so that even though not only has it been damaged, but in this camera, somebody has gone through and erased everything. So that not only is the camera damaged physically, but the person who had it last, whoever that may be, has erased everything. But the police are able to recover, using this encase program, 3 sets of photographs. And the first set of photographs is in the early afternoon. And it's a group of 6 photographs. And these photographs are dated June 4th, 2008. And they have times on them. And they have time to the second. And what they're able to see, that on June 4th, at 1:42 and 53 seconds, Mr. Alexander was very much alive. Not only was he very much alive, he was involved in these photographs with a woman. And yes, they were both sinning, because they were going at it. They were nude. And yes, they are engaged in sexual relations in these photographs. The photograph is at 1:42:53 p.m. the police are able to go in there and get that photograph. And this shows a frontal view of a woman. Then there's another photograph at 1:44 p.m. and it shows this woman's back end. And they're nude. They're just taking photographs. At 1:50 p.m., there's a photograph of the victim, and clearly he's excited. But there's also on there a bottle of KY, which is a personal lubricant that's used during sex. And we know that it was the defendant who introduced Mr. Alexander to the use of this KY. Well, the other thing is that we also, at 1:47:15, there's another view of the defendant. And then there are two other photographs that you really can't tell the time, but certainly they are of the defendant. So there's a total of 4 photographs of the defendant and 2 of Mr. Alexander. And they're both of them are very much alive. And yes, these are salacious photographs in the sense that what they are doing is what happens behind closed doors. But there is no legal prohibition against her driving or coming over to his house and having sex. There's no prohibition about that. There's no prohibition against Mr. Alexander having sex either. But that's what they find. They find him with a woman having sex on June 4th of 2008. Very much alive, both of them sinning, if you will. Well, but that still doesn't get you any nearer to solving this crime, because at least you know that he was alive on June 4th. And as they look at those photographs, they're able to make a determination, are able to see that actually the person in that photograph is somebody that people know. And it's an individual by the name of Jodi Arias. But you know, photographs can be a little blurry, they can be a little deceptive. You kind of want to be sure that that's the person. And so what they do is, on this hallway, and you'll see it as number 77, they were able to find a palm print, left palm print. And that is a mixture, it's a DNA mixture, but it's a palm print. And they're able to compare it to the known photograph of Jodi Ann Arias, and she's left-handed, and that's her palm print that's on there. So now they have a photograph of what they believe is her, plus they have this palm print, and they've developed a DNA profile from there that matches her DNA profile. Then also in the hallway here at number 6, down here toward the bottom, where there's the RP and the 6, they find a hair, and they conduct DNA analysis on that hair. And the profile that is developed pursuant to that DNA analysis matches the profile of the defendant. So the police are now sure that the person in those photographs is the defendant, and it's June 4th of 2008. Again, it's nice to know that, and that they're getting close, and it appears, because of all the blood that's there, that she's the person that committed this horrible crime, that committed this horrible killing. This second set of photographs is 20 photographs, and they are all of Mr. Alexander. And presumably because she's the one that's in the photograph with him, and they're not auto photographs, in other words, he's not taking them himself, it appears that she's the one that's taking these photographs of him in the shower, and they're on June 4th, 2008 at 5:22:24. They were engaged in these acts at 1:45, but now at 5:22:24, he's in the shower and he's posing for the person who's taking these photographs. And there's many poses of the water running down him, and most of them are from the waist up. So there's no genitalia that is being shown during these photographs. But the 20th photograph shows him sitting in this shower. And you do see the lower right quadrant of his posterior. And that photograph was taken at 5:30. So he was in the shower for approximately 8 minutes with these photographs being taken. Well, that again starts to narrow it down. And then there's finally a third set of photographs. And these are accidental photographs. These are inadvertent photographs. These are photographs that the killer did not want taken. And the first one of those is 44 seconds, taken 44 seconds after the photograph of Mr. Alexander's posterior in the shower. And that's taken at 5:31:14. I'm sorry, yes, that is taken at 5:31:14. So it's 44 seconds after the last photograph in the shower. And this is, if you will, a photograph of movement. And the reason that I say it's a photograph of movement is because it's taken, or it's consistent with being taken from the waist. The camera is straight up. In other words, it's not upside down, it's not to the side, it's straight up. But the photograph is a picture of the lights above the shower, and it's nothing more than movement. But that's when the attack is happening, and that's when Mr. Alexander is being attacked by this individual. The next inadvertent photograph is at 5:32:16, 1 minute and 2 seconds later. And that photograph is taken right here, near that 45. And it's another inadvertent photograph. And this photograph is consistent with the camera being taken off from the shoulder, the lanyard that's around it, and falling. But the camera is actually on the ground now and upside down. So this photograph is upside down. All the other photographs have been right side up, which is consistent with the camera falling here, striking the click, or striking the button, and taking a photograph. And you do see the killer in this one. You see, this individual's here. You see her foot. Not only do you see her foot, but you see Mr. Alexander's head. You see his arm. You see him bleeding profusely. You see the area of the sink down here. And you know what else you see? You see her manipulating him, trying to drag him or move him. And we know she moved him because he ends up in the shower. So we do know that he's here for sure. Well, she begins to pull him towards the shower. And there's another photograph that's inadvertently taken 1 minute and 16 seconds later at 5:33:32. And this photograph, again, is upside down when it's found. So the camera had not been moved, apparently, from the previous photograph. And this one is consistent with somebody stepping on the camera and there being a photo that it's taken. And on this one, what you do see is the shoulder of Mr. Alexander. You see the trim, and it's a little bit further down this hallway. It's this person that's in court here today. Drags him down in this direction. So the police now know what happened. They know that on June 4th of 2008, starting around in the afternoon, sometime after 1 o'clock, the defendant is there with Mr. Alexander. Even though they've broken up, even though she's in Wairika, somehow she's there in his house in Mesa, Arizona. They know that they engage in what is clearly one of the normal things of our species, and that's sexual intercourse. They enjoyed themselves. Yes, from a religious perspective, both of them were sinning. But she's there, and she's there from Wairika. She took 1,000 miles to get to that sinning. Then we know that at 5:30-ish, later on, he's in the shower. They know that. Whatever's going on, his defenses are down. He's very comfortable. We also know then that as he sat there, she took the knife and began to stab him when he was in that defenseless sitting position, and began and stuck the knife in his chest. He struggled. He grabbed the knife. And when he grabbed the knife, of course that resulted in more blood. But since he's not going to die immediately, he's going to die from the loss of blood, and he hasn't lost consciousness, he began to go around the bathroom and ends up at the sink, hunched over. We know that he receives a lot of stab wounds to the back, and they're grouped, and also to his head. We know that he was stationary at that point when he gets to that sink. So, we don't know exactly where, but it could be, it's consistent with him then being stabbed at that point as he continues to bleed out. And this bleeding out process is not immediate. He can speak, he can talk, blood may be flowing from his mouth, but he can still make noises, he can still move until he starts to lose strength. We know that, we can say at least, that it's consistent with him then trying to get away when he got as far as here, the entrance to the major part of the bedroom. And we know that because of the photographs that we have. And we also know because of the big blotch of blood that's there. And that's where the slitting ear to ear took place. He was still alive at that point. That's why there's so much blood. Because when you die, the medical examiner will tell you, you can do whatever you want to the body. But if you're already dead, there's not going to be this spurting of blood. There's not going to be this blood that's out there. So he was still alive then. We also know that that is a rapidly mortal wound. And in light of the fact that he was already bleeding, he was more likely than not dead at that point. And by the time she was dragging him down, pulling him down towards this area right here, he didn't need that shot to the head. But she had a gun somewhere. And she got that gun. We don't know the distance. And part of the reason we don't know the distance is because the body's decomposed. But do know that she put that bullet right in his temple. And that also would have been rapidly fatal. That injury would have also rendered him unconscious. So, after that, she took that camera. At some point, knowing what was on there. And you know how difficult it is to deal with these cameras. She was able to go through the process and deleted all of the photographs. She took time to drag him, put him in the shower, clean him up, doing away with whatever evidence may be on there, clean the area there, even though it's still very bloody, took a towel to clean up, walked downstairs. Remember, he's got this dog Napoleon there. Walked downstairs, went to the washing machine, stuck everything in the washing machine, and had the wherewithal to start it. And put the camera in there after she deleted all of those photographs. Police knew that that's who she was. But they had something else that they needed to deal with. Because as I told you, this happened on June 4th, which was a Wednesday. The body wasn't discovered until Monday, the 9th of June. On the 10th of June, which is when, since everything happened at night, the investigation really took off on the 10th. Detective Steve Flores of the Mesa Police Department received a telephone call from somebody wanting to help. This person here called him up, wanted to help him out, and started to talk about how their relationship with Travis Alexander, how she was in Yreka, California at this time that this happened, could not have had anything to do with this at all. She was asked, well, does Mr. Alexander have any guns? Oh, no. Mr. Alexander has no guns whatsoever. All he could do for him to defend himself, all he had was his fist. How about knives? Did he have any knives? Oh, no knives. Oh, not Mr. Alexander. He didn't have any of that. Not Travis. So she's telling them he didn't have a gun there. So that the killers, whoever they were according to her, brought them with them. The other thing that she says is that, well, you may want to start looking. She gives him a lead. You may want to start looking at one of his roommates, a guy by the last name of Brown, Thomas Brown. That's who you really need to look at, because, if you're really looking for people, that's the person who you may want to look at, because I wasn't there. According to her, the last time she was there was in April of 2008. So how could it be her, since this happened on June 4th, 2008? So it really couldn't have been her. Well, at that time, of course, the police know. They've seen photographs. They already know they got fingerprints there. So they know that that perhaps isn't the truth. Well, they know it isn't the truth. It's not a perhaps proposition. This detective keeps talking to her. And she says, you know, it really wasn't me. I didn't have anything to do with it. And describes this relationship that she had with Mr. Alexander. The police need to do something with that because she has made it a point of saying she wasn't there. I couldn't have possibly been there. And so they start looking further at a possibility of where she was and that sort of thing. And one of the things that they're able to discover is that a week before this killing on June 4th of 2008, on May 28, 2008, there was a burglary report. Seemingly unrelated to this case, there was a burglary report up in Wairika, California, where she was, May 28, 2008. And the burglary, the police responded sometime around 3:30 in the afternoon of May 28th, which was about a week before Mr. Alexander was killed. And they responded to a house on Pine Street, the house where the defendant was living back on May 28th of 2008. And police did talk to the defendant about it, and there were items that were taken during this burglary. But according to the officer that responded, Kevin Friedman of the Wairika Police Department, well, you know, there was something not right about this burglary. I mean, maybe the entry, there was a little bit of a problem. It was just like they were very careful how they entered. They opened the drawers, but, you know, there were items that clearly were of value that they didn't take. And, well, it just didn't seem quite right. When he went there, there were two people there, the grandparents, but the defendant wasn't there. She was called and showed up and indicated that she had been the last person there and had been there as late as approximately 1 p.m. And the burglary was reported sometime around 3:30. So it happened between 1 and 3:30 p.m. And the defendant reported, oh, yes, there was some items that were taken of mine. There was a $20 bill and a $10 bill, so there was $30 that were taken of mine. And, you know, luckily for me, before I left, I was able to hide my laptop underneath some dirty clothing. So just in case somebody came in and, you know, wanted to steal stuff, they didn't take my laptop. And thank God I did that because they didn't take my laptop. Well, those were some of the things that were taken and some of the things that weren't taken. But one of the things that was taken was a .25 caliber handgun belonging to the grandfather. And this is just a week before the killing. And it matched in the sense that it's the same caliber, the .25 caliber casing that is labeled number 1 and is found by the sink. Well, the police looked at that and knew that there was a time. It was very close in time. The other thing that police were able to find was that on that same day, May 28th of 2008, at 9:25 p.m., the defendant sent an email. And she sent an email to Travis Alexander. And she mentions that he's going to Cancun. That's the first mention there is in any of their correspondence, whether it be text messaging, whether it be emails or instant messaging, of Cancun. He indicates that she knows that he's going to Cancun. It is clear now that he's going to Cancun and she ain't going with him. So that's something that they have. The other thing that they start looking around and they're able to find is that the defendant on June 2nd, which is 2 days before the killing, actually went from Wairika, California to Redding, California, which is maybe 1 to 2 hours away, south. And she went south for the purpose of renting a car. They have car rental agencies in Wairika, but she actually went to a different town that's approximately 90 miles away. And she went to a budget rent-a-car, and she spoke to the agent there. And one of the things that she was able to do is rent a car. But again, it was not in her town, and it was in a place that's far away. And the person who rented the car to her, well, he was shown a photographic lineup. And he said, and asked whether or not he saw the person that he rented the car to. He said, oh yeah, there she is, right there. The defendant. He said, but, you know, the photograph that you're showing me, she's got black hair. When she came to rent the car from me, she was a blonde. So, you know, it's the same girl, I'm sure of that. But her hair color changed. Her hair color changed from June 2nd to June 4th in the afternoon when she was having sex with Mr. Alexander. So we know that from the photograph. And she rented the car and said she was going to return it on June 6th of 2008. And in fact, she returned it on June 7th of 2008. And there was over 2,000 miles on that car. One of the other things that police were able to do is that they were able to find receipts. And they were able to show that the defendant, in fact, and she readily admits this now, that she did take a trip. She took a trip, but she was going to go to Utah, according to her. She was going to go to Utah because she has a love interest there, or somebody that could potentially be a love interest, by the name of Ryan Burns. And she was going to visit him, not only visit him, but she was also going there to maybe do some marketing with PPL on this Thursday afternoon, which would have been the 5th of June. And so they're able to see that she goes to Southern California, stops at places like Starbucks there in the evening, sometime around 9 o'clock in the evening, and giving her plenty of time to be there the next day. So they're able to see that not only does she have the opportunity, she actually is placed near the area of California, which would have been a short is a relative term, drive to Mesa. So when she said to the police back on June 10th of 2008 that she hadn't been there, well, the police knew now that that was not true, because they could trace her movements. Well, the other thing that they were able to find that came out is that...
Mr. Martinez, we're going to take a new recess at this time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be back in the designated area at 1:30. Please remember the admonition. I'm going to ask that you review the admonition. It is in your black binder. You should have it in writing.
We left off before lunch talking about the police investigation into the defendant's statement that she was not at Mr. Alexander's home on June 4th of 2008. And specifically, we were talking about the police obtaining documents that showed that she rented a car in Redding, California on June 2nd, and that they were able to show that she actually made her way down south in California and made her way down to Southern California, and at some point made her way over to Utah. And ostensibly, she indicated that she was going to Utah to meet up with a friend, somebody that she had a romantic interest in, somebody by the name of Ryan Burns. And what Mr. Burns will tell you is that she was supposed to arrive a day earlier. And somehow, for this whole period of time, couldn't get a hold of her. Tried to call her, she wouldn't call him back. We know now that the reason that was is because she was with Mr. Alexander. But she did happen to arrive in the Salt Lake City, Utah area on June 5th, June 5th, which was that Thursday. And as she got there, sometime around a little bit before 11 o'clock, Mr. Burns indicated that he had to go to a meeting, and that if she wanted to go with him, that she could follow him in her car, the rental car that she was driving. As they were driving in West Jordan, Utah, an officer with the West Jordan Police Department stopped her in that vehicle. And the reason they stopped her in that car was because there was a problem with her license plate. There are 2 plates that are required in Utah, and in fact there are 2 plates that are provided and required in California. So when the car was rented, there was a front plate and there was also a back plate. Well, the car that she was driving did not have a front plate. So between the time that she rented it and the time that she was stopped, somebody took that plate off. Additionally, the reason that she was stopped is that the plate in the back had been turned upside down. And so the police officer stopped the car, and he will come in. His name's Michael Gaglietti, and he will tell you that the person that was driving the car was the defendant. And she provided some story about being at Starbucks, and that somehow some of the kids were trying to play a trick and took the license plate off the car and put one of the license plates inside the car and then somehow turned the other license plate upside down. Well, she continues on with Mr. Burns, and then at some point the meeting is over. They go back to his place. And what seems to be something with her is that the inevitable happens. They do begin to become engaged amorously. They begin to kiss. They begin to get involved in that sort of fashion. And Mr. Burns will tell you that, yes, they did go further than that. And in fact, he will say that he had his hands between her legs. And he will also say that the reason that they didn't go all the way or continue on to sexual intercourse is because he's Mormon. And his teachings, which I've been telling you about, do not allow for that sort of behavior, if you will. And so it wasn't that the defendant was stopping him, it was that he decided not to go any further than that. And then the police also determined that the car was finally returned on the 7th of June back to the budget rent-a-car in Redding, California. Well, the police, now knowing that there was this trip that was planned, they have the photograph, they now have the DNA, and they also have the fingerprints, arrested the defendant for the first-degree murder of Travis Alexander. And as part of that process of the arrest, the police conducted or spoke with the defendant. And of course, prior to speaking with the defendant, they admonished her of the Miranda warnings and talked to her about what the Miranda warnings were, and she agreed to speak with them. And these are videotaped. And this was on June 15th of 2008. And they arrested her while she was in this home on Pine Street, the home that she lived there with her grandparents, the home where there was this burglary on May 28th of 2008. And when they spoke with her on that June 15th, the defendant said, well, you know, I'll talk to you about it, but I don't, other than what I've already told you, I don't know too much about it. Well, why don't you tell us what you do know? Well, I can tell you that the last time that I was there was back in April of 2008. That's what she told them. And they said, well, are you sure? I mean, we have some photographs of you there. She said, well, are you sure they weren't taken on a different date? No, we're sure they weren't taken on a different date. Well, I wasn't there. It wasn't me. Well, what about this time lapse? What about this gap where you sort of disappeared? You're supposed to be in Utah with this other boyfriend of yours, and yet you can't be found. People are making calls. There are no calls going out, nothing going in. What about that time? I got lost. What ended up happening is that I ended up getting lost, and I got so lost I almost can't tell you where I was. But I do know one thing, she said. I ended up on the 40, the I-40. And the detective said to her, how can that be possible? If you're coming from California and you're going to Salt Lake City, Utah, how is it possible, since the road goes northeast, the 15 goes northeast, and takes you through Las Vegas that way, why the only way that you can get on the 40 is if you come through Mesa and then you come up that way? Couldn't have been on the 40. There's no way that you could have. Oh, yes, I was, she said. I can get lost with the best of them. I slept in my car, and my phone, the reason no one was able to get a hold of me was that it wasn't charged up. It has lost its charge. The police kept saying, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would you say that that's what happened? And if you're going to Salt Lake City, how can you say that you actually came through the 40 and then up through Las Vegas that way? She kept to her story and said, no, I was never there on June 4th, 2008. What? So the police left it at that. The next day she indicated a willingness to continue talking to the police officers, and that was July 16th. And she was again read her Miranda warnings. And this time, when she spoke to the police officer, she said, I got to tell you something. I really have to tell you something. Maybe what I told you yesterday, well, maybe that's not the truth. What I really have to tell you today is what happened. And what ended up happening is, and I'm just incredibly scared for my family. I'm just totally scared for my brother, my my sister, my family, my grandparents, because as a result of this killing, well, the people that really did this killing, they're the ones, these are the people that are out to get my parents. So, although I told you yesterday that I wasn't there, well, I'm telling you now that I was there. And I can tell you what happened. I arrived there sometime around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning of June 4th. When I arrived there, Travis was on the computer, and he was watching some sort of YouTube thing about some ladies with something on their head. It was just a silly video, and we sat and watched it for a little bit. And after watching that for a short period of time, well, we went up to bed. Nothing happened. The next day, in the afternoon, you're right, that is me in those photographs. That's me, and yes, we are engaged in intimacies. We're having sex. The other thing that's also true is that, well, those photographs, 20 that I talked to you about, I was the one that was the photographer. I was the one that was taking those photographs. I was the one that talked him into standing and posing for me. He really didn't want to pose for me. He thought it was just not his cup of tea. But, you know, he sort of did it for me. And so I began to take the photographs of him. As I'm taking these photographs of him, I hear this loud noise. And something hits me. And I really can't, I don't know if, I think I went unconscious. I'm not sure I went unconscious, but I think I did. And then I realized that Travis is hurt. I don't know how it happened, but I realized that Travis is hurt. And he's on all fours. And he's saying, help me, or words to that effect. He can't get up. And I'm trying to help him. I'm trying to do the best I can to get him out of there, to get him up so we can leave. That's what I'm doing, she says. I'm trying to do the best that I can. But he can't seem to get up because there's a problem with his legs. He says he can't move. Well, while I'm trying to do this, I realized that, and again, I didn't tell you yesterday because I was afraid, but what is going on is that there's these two individuals. First, she really doesn't know what their sexes are, but comes around and says, it's a man and it's a woman. Not only is it a man and a woman, but all I can see are their eyes. I can tell you, I guess, she said that they're Caucasian. Or maybe she can tell you that. But other than that, I don't have any way of identifying who these attackers are. And according to them, it appears that I surprised them, that I shouldn't have been there. Because one of them said words to the effect that, you know, that's that girl from California. I wasn't supposed to be there, that these people were designed to take care of Travis for whatever reason they had. And I don't know what that reason is. They were there to do him harm. Well, what kind of weapons did they have? Well, she said, I think they had 1 or 2 guns. I'm really not sure. All I know is that I was focused on Travis. I had been hit myself. I didn't know what to do. And so what happened then? Well, Travis kept saying to go to the neighbors for help, but I didn't want to leave him there. And at one point, what I did was that I was able to, and it depends on what point the story is picked up, but I pushed the girl who was there, and I was able to get the better of her, and I was about to run out, get out and go get some help, except that I was then confronted by the guy. And the girl kept saying, well, just do her, and the guy didn't want to do it. But I had the gun straight at my face. And this gun that was pointed at my face, well, he pulled the trigger. And for whatever reason, Providence perhaps, gun didn't go off. But I was very worried still about Travis, and I needed to get him out of there. When the gun didn't go off, well, this guy started looking through my purse. And lo and behold, in my purse, believe it or not, I happen to have my car registration that shows my address, because that's what I carry around. So they knew, they being this guy, knew exactly where I lived. And he said to me, well, if you tell what happened here, the same thing's going to happen to your family. So she then told the detective, how could you expect me to say anything? At some point, she also indicates that she is fighting with the woman. She claims that she's barefoot, and that the woman may have hit her feet, but she was able to hit the woman also. The detective asked, well, what about a knife? Did a knife ever come up? She said, I think the woman was the one that had the knife. And when you were going through all these things, and she says everything happened in the bathroom, when you were going through all these things, what was Travis doing? What was going on with Travis? Well, he was alive. It looks like he was really in a lot of pain. But there wasn't anything I could do because he couldn't get up. I tried. I did the best that I could. I fought with the girl. I had the gun pointed at me. I mean, they already knew where I lived. Just by looking at it, they knew my address, and I guess that committed to memory. So I was worried about my family. So there was nothing I could do. So what happened next? Well, I was able to pick up my purse. And the police did not find any articles of clothing there from her. I was able, she said, to pick up my purse, run out of the house, run downstairs, and nobody chased me. And then I was able to get in the car, and I was able to drive away and make my getaway. Why didn't you call the police? She was asked. Well, don't you know? My phone wasn't charged up. That's why I couldn't dial. That's what the problem was. Never called the police from there all the way to Utah. There never was a call. The only call came from Murray Hall on June 9th. That's her version. And after that version, the defendant seemed to want an audience. And she began to go on national television to talk about it. And basically, that was her story, that there had been two other individuals that had done it. And in fact, she went on a show called Inside Edition, which will be exhibit number 247, and she talked to them about this.
I understand that everything, all of the evidence against me right now is very compelling.
What really happened in there?
In a nutshell, two people took Travis's life, two monsters.
You did not shoot Travis.
No, I've never even shot a real gun.
You did not stab him 27 times.
That's heinous.
Or
I've never
slit his throat from ear to ear.
I can't imagine slitting anyone's throat.
That was her story, in part, that's a summary of the story that she told the detective. Well, there's a different story now. Now, it's not that she wasn't there. Now, it's not that it's two people with whatever variation she may have provided to these national shows. Now, she admits it. It was her. She's the person who actually did this. And she's the person that actually did, even though she says otherwise, she's the one that did the stabbing, she's the one that slit his throat, and she's the one that shot him. She's the one that now is admitting that after telling all these things. And even though she says that, she still has a view as to the evidence. This is exhibit number 248.
No jury is going to convict me.
Why not?
Because I'm innocent, and you can mark my words on that one. No jury will convict me.
I also ask that you mark her words that no jury will convict her, even though she has admitted that she's the person that did this after giving many or different stories of what happened. And as you mark her words, I ask you, while you're doing that, in your final deliberations, that you remember that while you're marking the guilty verdict for her premeditated killing of Travis Alexander. She said, well, are you sure they weren't taken on a different date? No, we're sure they weren't taken on a different date. Well, I wasn't there. It wasn't me. Well, what about this time lapse? What about this gap where you sort of disappear. You're supposed to be in Utah with this other boyfriend of yours, and yet you can't be found. People are making calls. There are no calls going out, nothing going in. What about that time? I got lost. What ended up happening is that I ended up getting lost, and I got so lost I almost can't tell you where I was. But I do know one thing, she said. I ended up on the 40, the I-40. And the detective said to her, how can that be possible? If you're coming from California and you're going to Salt Lake City, Utah, how is it possible, since the road goes northeast, the 15 goes northeast, and takes you through Las Vegas that way? Why? The only way that you can get on the 40 is if you come through Mesa and then you come up that way. You couldn't have been on the 40. There's no way that you could have. Oh, yes, I was, she said. You know, I can get lost with the best of them. I slept in my car, and my phone, the reason no one was able to get a hold of me was that it wasn't charged up. It has lost its charge. The police kept saying, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would you say that that's what happened? And if you're going to Salt Lake City, how can you say that you actually came through the 40 and then up through Las Vegas that way? She kept to her story and said, no, I was never there on June 4th, 2008. So the police left it at that. The next day she indicated a willingness to continue talking to the police officers, and that was July 16th. And she was again read her Miranda warnings. And this time, when she spoke to the police officer, she said, you know, I got to tell you something. I really have to tell you something. Maybe what I told you yesterday, well, maybe that's not the truth. What I really have to tell you today is what happened. And what ended up happening is, and I'm just incredibly scared for my family. I'm just totally scared for my brother, my sister, my family, my grandparents, because as a result of this killing, well, the people that really did this killing, they're the ones, these are the people that are out to get my parents. So, although I told you yesterday that I wasn't there, well, I'm telling you now that I was there. And I can tell you what happened. I arrived there sometime around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning of June 4th. When I arrived there, Travis was on the computer, and he was watching some sort of YouTube thing about some ladies with something on their head, and it was just a silly video, and we sat and watched it for a little bit. And after watching that for a short period of time, well, we went up to bed. Nothing happened. The next day, in the afternoon, you're right, that is me in those photographs. That's me, and yes, we are engaged in intimacies. We're having sex. The other thing that's also true is that, well, those photographs, 20 that I talked to you about, I was the one that was the photographer. I was the one that was taking those photographs. I was the one that talked him into standing and posing for me. He really didn't want to pose for me. He thought it was just not his cup of tea. But, you know, he sort of did it for me. And so I began to take the photographs of him. As I'm taking these photographs of him, I hear this loud noise. And something hits me. And I really can't, I don't know if, I think I went unconscious. I'm not sure I went unconscious, but I think I did. And
Jodi Arias killed Travis Alexander. There is no question about it. The $1 million question is what would have forced her to do it. And throughout this trial, you will hear that Jodi was indeed forced. In just under 2 minutes, we go from the last picture taken of Travis in the shower, in just under 2 minutes, to the picture of Travis's body. You can see the foot in the front with his head and his shoulders, and blood clearly on his shoulders. In just those 2 minutes, Jodi had to make a choice. She would either live or she would die. Jodi did not always tell the truth about what happened that night. She was scared. Scared about what had happened and scared about what she had done. She had absolutely no experience with police interrogation before. And so when they talked to her, she wasn't always truthful. Her fear and her panic about what had happened led her to tell different stories. But you will learn that what she said, those stories, were not the truth. Throughout this trial, you will learn more about Jodi Arias, much more about Jodi. You will find that she is an articulate, bright young woman who is a very talented artist and photographer. But most of all, what you'll learn is that Jodi loved Travis. And so what would have forced her to have to take Travis's life on that awful day? In order to answer that question, we have to go back to the beginning. Back to before, just before she and Travis first met. Now, Travis and Jodi met in September of 2006. At that time, Jodi was in a relationship, a long-term relationship, with Daryl Brewer. Jodi and Daryl had been together for 4 years at that point. Now, Jodi and Daryl first met when Jodi was working at the Ventana Inn and Spa. And Daryl was actually her boss. But she was quickly promoted to event planner, and when she was promoted, he was no longer her boss. And so the two began to date. And at the time, Daryl had just gotten through a very difficult divorce, and he really had no intentions of getting married again. But despite that, they still embarked on a relationship to see where it was going to lead them. Well, it was serious enough that in June of 2005, they both put money down on a house and bought a house together in Palm Desert, California. Now, Prepaid Legal has 2 big conventions a year, and they had just had their convention in March, which Jodi missed because she was just signing up. And so the next convention was in September, and the person who signed her up really talked to her about how important it is to go to these conventions so you can learn more about how to get people to buy insurance and so forth. And so in September of 2006, it was with the hope of gaining more financial stability that Jodi, Michelle, and another girlfriend hopped in the car and drove up to Vegas. That's where the convention was being held. And it was actually being held at the MGM Grand. Now, the idea of this convention is that it is a long weekend full of meetings. Meetings about how great Prepaid Legal is, and as long as you can sell what they're trying to sell and you can get people to buy, you can stand to make a lot of money. And so lots of the parts of these meetings are people giving speeches about how to do it and why to do it and how much money you can make. After one of these meetings one day, Jodi was having lunch with some of her friends that she had just met and some of the friends that she came with. They were at the Rainforest Cafe in the MGM Grand. And she was standing just outside the Rainforest Cafe. There was a group of people, and she sees one man across the way. That man walks right up to her, makes a beeline, and says, "Hi, my name's Travis Alexander." That is how Jodi and Travis first met. They spent, over the rest of the weekend, Travis spent a lot of time with Jodi, wowing her about how important he was. Because he was actually an executive director in Prepaid Legal, which means he was at a higher level in the company. He had a lot of people signing up underneath him, which pushes him up to a higher level. She learned that because he was an executive director, that he would get to go to the executive director banquets. And after meeting Jodi, he invited Jodi to go. And so although it's a place that she normally wouldn't get to go because she had just signed up, she got to go to this executive banquet. He also invited her to sit in the front seats. So at these meetings, usually the front seats, the front rows, are reserved for people who are considered important in Prepaid Legal. It wouldn't have been Jodi at that time. But because of Travis and his invitation, she got to sit up front. He took her through a tour of the casino, They talked and talked and talked. And in fact, at one point they sat on a bench in the casino to the wee hours of the morning, where at some point Travis actually tried to kiss Jodi. But Jodi had to stop him and remind him that she had a boyfriend, Daryl. During the time that they spent together, Jodi learned a lot about Travis. Not only was he an executive director at Prepaid Legal, but being an executive director, he made many speeches at these conventions to try and get people to sign up at Prepaid Legal. Not only that, he was a Mormon, which is a religion that really emphasizes and values marriage and children. And they spoke a lot about that weekend. Jodi was captivated. After the convention, Travis kept in touch with Jodi. They talked on the phone for hours. They continued talking and texting after the convention. And in fact, it was just 4 days after the convention when Jodi had a sit-down talk with Daryl. They talked about their relationship, how it wasn't really progressing, and they eventually broke up. Daryl moved into a different bedroom within their own house. It was only the following weekend after the convention, about a week and a half after the convention ended, that Travis convinced Jodi to come and meet him at his friend's house in Murrieta, California. And that was Chris and Sky Hughes. And Jodi agreed, so she drove up to meet Travis with his friends at their house and spent the weekend with them. It was that weekend, a week and a half after first meeting Travis, that they introduced her to the Mormon Church, and they took her to church. It was a few days after that, the following Wednesday, that Travis, on his way home from California, back to Mesa, Arizona, stopped in Palm Desert, California, to see Jodi once more. And when he stopped, he met Jodi at a Starbucks. It was at that Starbucks that they had some more discussions, and that was when Travis gave Jodi the Book of Mormon. Shortly after that visit at Starbucks, Travis sent missionaries, Mormon missionaries, to Jodi's house in Palm Desert. And those missionaries came to visit her once a week, from the end of September all the way through October. The missionaries would have sit-down talks with Jodi, discuss the LDS Church, discuss the Book of Mormon, and all the good reasons why it was to join and convert. And so, in November of 2006, just 2 months after meeting Travis, Travis convinced Jodi to convert to Mormonism. Now, not only was Travis portrayed as an important member of Prepaid Legal, but he was a very important member of the Mormon Church as well. He was a temple member. And a temple member is not just a member of the church. A temple member is special. It's special because in order to become a temple member, one has to actually live what they consider a worthy life. And a worthy life is someone who has no alcohol, no tobacco, no tea, no coffee, and above all, that person has no sex without marriage of any kind. It was a prestigious honor to be a temple member, and Travis was. He was someone to be admired to Jodi. He was a good Mormon man that she had met. And in November, Travis baptized Jodi into the Mormon Church. Now, Travis and Jodi took many trips together during the time that they knew each other. Jodi is a wonderful photographer, and so much of their trips are actually documented in photographs. And so they took a lot of trips together for church trips, in other words, going to visit different Mormon churches, special places for the Mormon church, and then just trips together. Certainly on the outside, looking in, it really appeared like they were involved in a very loving and healthy relationship. But nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, behind the smiles in these photographs, there was a whole nother reality for Jodi. A reality that Travis created. Because in reality, Jodi was Travis's dirty little secret. From the moment, despite projecting himself as a good and virginal Mormon man, someone who was a temple member, from the moment he met Jodi, he was pushing and pushing her to have a sexual relationship with him. And it took just about a week, because the weekend that they met at Chris and Sky Hughes' house, he got what he wanted. As Travis would explain to Jodi, oral sex really isn't as much of a sin for him as vaginal sex. And so he was able to convince her to give him oral sex. And later in their relationship, Travis would tell her that anal sex really isn't much of a sin compared to vaginal sex. And so he was able to persuade her to allow him to have anal sex with her. Being a temple member and an executive director of prepaid legal, outward appearances would be very important to Travis. And so while he continued this facade of being a good and virginal Mormon man, he was inwardly dealing with his own sexual issues. And in Jodi, he found somebody who was easily manipulated and controlled. Someone who would provide him with that secretive sexual relationship that he needed. While on the outside, he can still pursue the appropriate Mormon woman. Jodi wanted nothing but to please Travis. And in doing that, at some points during their relationship, he would tell her, you know, maybe you ought to see somebody else, date somebody else. But the moment that Jodi would ever even text another man or talk to another man, Travis would instantly degrade her, yell at her, embarrass her, and humiliate her. And so Jodi learned very quickly how to deal with Travis's temper. She learned how to deal with his temper by being humble, compliant, and agreeable. And that was one good way to help avoid his temper. Jodi officially broke up with Travis in June of 2007. And this June of 2007 was, she broke up with him because she found out that despite having sex with Jodi and saying things like he loved her, he was pursuing other women. And so because of that, Jodi broke up with him. But Travis didn't want to break up. Travis begged her for forgiveness. And even though they were considered officially broken up, they never stopped seeing each other. They never stopped talking with each other, or emailing, or texting. Now, at the time that they broke up, Jodi was living in Big Sur, California, and Travis was living in Mesa, Arizona. In July of 2007, Travis sent Jodi a poem that basically apologized for his behavior and asked her to be with him. Later in July of 2007, Jodi actually flew out to see Travis in Mesa and spent the weekend with him. That weekend sealed the deal because Travis showered her with attention, was nothing but sweet and kind. And so shortly after that, Jodi moved from Big Sur, California to Mesa, Arizona. She moved in with a girlfriend of hers she knew from the Mormon church. Now, despite the attention that Travis paid to Jodi in private, he treated her far differently in the public eye. You'll hear how Travis degraded Jodi to his friends. You'll hear that he often referred to her as a stalker or claimed that she was crazy. And if she did anything, like speak with another man or text another man, he would further degrade her by calling her names. Names like slut and whore. He would text her these things and email her these things. The more that Travis distanced himself from Jodi to his friends, the easier it was for him to keep control of her and to keep for his own sexual needs. Now, one of the witnesses that you'll hear from is named Alice LaViolette. Miss LaViolette is an expert in dealing with domestic violence. She has decades of experience with domestic violence counseling, and in fact, she started, I think, in 1978, counseling battered women in shelters. But today, her specialty is treating people for domestic violence. She treats the victims of domestic violence, but she also treats the abusers in domestic violence. Miss LaViolette will explain to you how domestic violence relationships are created. She will explain to you that they are not created overnight. And she'll also talk to you about how in domestic violence, when we refer to domestic violence, we're not always talking about physical violence. In fact, a lot of times domestic violence comes from control through verbal abuse. She'll talk to you about the difficulty with domestic violence and how a lot of times domestic violence goes unreported and unprosecuted. She'll talk to you about the reasons for that, because a lot of domestic violence victims are ashamed of what happens to them. Domestic violence victims sometimes fear that their abuser is going to get even more violent if they actually report it. And sometimes domestic violence victims believe and hope that the abuser will change, like he promises he's going to. Most importantly, Miss LaViolette will talk to you about why domestic violence victims don't have the same ability that everybody else does to make that decision to leave. Because if somebody is abusing you, get up and leave. Miss LaViolette will explain to you that it is not an easy decision to make for somebody who has been abused, because there's a lot of psychological components that go into that decision. Now, the best evidence of Travis's manipulation of Jodi is his insistence to others that Jodi stalked him. His insistence to others that Jodi wouldn't leave him alone. But yet it was always at his demand and his beckoning that Jodi spent time with him. In fact, at one point during their relationship, Travis even had a t-shirt made. A t-shirt made proclaiming his ownership of Jodi. Now, I know that in some circles, and certainly in some relationships, maybe that would be considered cute or funny. But if you understand the inner workings of the relationship between Travis and Jodi, that t-shirt is a perfect example of how Travis treated Jodi. Oftentimes, in April of 2008, Jodi had had enough, because Jodi found out that once again Travis was pursuing other women. Even though he was having her in his bed, Travis was still pursuing other women, and in April of 2008, Jodi had enough. She moved from Mesa, Arizona, back to California, to Wairika, which is where her grandparents live. Even though she moved, Travis didn't let her go. He continued emailing, texting, and calling. He guilted her about leaving him. And the thing is, with the type of relationship that they were in, the minute that Travis was nice to Jodi and caring to Jodi, she fell right back into that relationship with him. And so even though she left and moved states, they still continued to talk and email and text. In fact, even though they didn't see each other from April of 2008 until June of 2008, Travis was still able to use Jodi for his own sexual desires through the phone and phone sex. You'll actually hear a recorded phone call. Recorded call between Travis and Jodi that's very explicit. And this phone call is made just a couple of weeks before Travis dies. It's clear in this phone call that the both of them are talking about how they're going to find somebody and marry someone else. Jodi very clearly knows that Travis is not going to marry her, and she's not going to marry Travis. And they discuss it. Travis talks about how he's going to Cancun with somebody else. Jodi knew that, and she expresses absolutely no dismay about it whatsoever. And this is just weeks before he dies. Most importantly, when you hear this call, it's crucial to understand the difference between the type of person that Travis portrayed himself to be versus the things that he said on this recorded call. Because while he was supposed to be this virginal Mormon man who didn't want to have any type of relationship with Jodi and she just wouldn't leave him alone, in this phone call he talks about his fantasies with Jodi of tying her to a tree and putting it, forgive me, in her ass all the way. That's Travis. And then, when Jodi pretends to climax during this phone call, Travis tells her that she sounds like a 12-year-old girl who was having an orgasm for the first time. And then he tells her, "It's so hot." These comments are not comments of a man who is being relentlessly stalked and who does not want to have any contact with Jodi. These are comments of a man who has a real problem with the comparison to the person he portrays himself to be and who he's supposed to be versus the person, his own private reality, and the person who he really was. So, what would have forced Jodi? It was Travis's continual abuse. And on June 4th of 2008, it had reached a point of no return. And sadly, Travis left Jodi no other option but to defend herself. On that horrible day, Jodi believed that Travis was going to kill her. He threatened to kill her, and given her experience with him, she had no reason to not believe him. Travis knew that Jodi was planning a trip to Utah because they had talked about it. He knew that she was going to stop along the way and see different friends of hers. He kept asking her to come and see him. And at the last minute, Jodi decided that she would veer off and take a short trip to Mesa to come and see Travis at his beckoning. And so she gets to Mesa early in the morning, around 4 or so in the morning. Travis is in his den, which is downstairs. He's on the computer when she gets there. And we know this because there's a forensic examination done of his computer. So we know he was on the computer at 4 in the morning. Travis wanted to have sex, but Jodi said she was too tired. And so the two went upstairs and they went to sleep. They slept until about 1 in the afternoon. And when they got up at 1 in the afternoon, they began to engage in sexual activity. Travis always had wanted to tie Jodi up. And he had done it before. He had tied her up with rope before, but the rope he had used really hurt her. And so this time he was prepared. He had rope that was soft. The kind of rope that, horrible day, Jodi believed that Travis was going to kill her. He threatened to kill her, and given her experience with him, she had no reason to not believe him. Travis knew that Jodi was planning a trip to Utah because they had talked about it. He knew that she was going to stop along the way and see different friends of hers. He kept asking her to come and see him. And at the last minute, Jodi decided that she would veer off and take a short trip to Mesa to come and see Travis at his beckoning. And so she gets to Mesa early in the morning, around 4 or so in the morning. Travis is in his den, which is downstairs. He's on the computer when she gets there. And we know this because there's a forensic examination done of his computer. So we know he was on the computer at 4 in the morning. Travis wanted to have sex, but Jodi said she was too tired. And so the two went upstairs and they went to sleep. They slept until about 1 in the afternoon. And when they got up at 1 in the afternoon, they began to engage in sexual activity. Travis always had wanted to tie Jodi up. And he had done it before. He had tied her up with rope before, but the rope he had used really hurt her. And so this time he was prepared. He had rope that was soft, the kind of rope that people use for decorating, to hold curtains back. So it's like a softer rope. He had that kind of rope. And he was ready. And so Travis tied Jodi up, tied her to the bed with this rope. He used a knife to cut the rope when it was at the appropriate length. They engaged in sexual activity, and then part of what they were doing that afternoon too was that he wanted to take pictures of Jodi. He had gotten a new camera just a month or so before, and he wanted to use it to take pictures of Jodi. Now, the kind of pictures that Travis wants to take of Jodi are the kind that would make most people cringe with embarrassment. And we show you these photos not for any type of shock value, but you're going to see them in trial. Because these are the photos that Travis took of Jodi. Very up close. Travis also liked to see Jodi in pigtails. And so she put her hair in pigtails for him. These photos were taken in the afternoon. Later that afternoon, Travis and Jodi were downstairs, and they were back in his den. They were pouring through pictures of all of their trips together, all the different pictures that they had. And there was a problem because Travis couldn't pull up pictures on his computer. And he was having a problem getting to see these pictures. Well, we know that there was a virus on Travis's computer. And we know that because of the forensic examination that was done. And so, when he tried to pull up these pictures, it wasn't working right. Well, Travis's temper flared, and he took the CD and he threw it up against the wall in the den. Jodi went immediately into protective mode. Protective mode means that she's trying to calm him down, trying to do something to avoid his temper, telling him that it's okay, I'll fix it, don't worry about it. And as she was telling him, she knew that the one thing that calms his temper the quickest is sex. So as she's telling him, it's okay, I'll fix it, don't worry, Travis grabbed her and spun her around. Afraid that he was going to hurt her, Jodi was actually relieved, when all he did was bend her over the desk, pull her arm up behind her back, pull her pants down, and have quick and rough vaginal sex with her, ejaculating all over her back. When Travis was finished, Jodi was allowed to get up and go to the restroom across the hallway from the den. She washed herself off. And then the two went upstairs to the bedroom, back up to get her stuff. But Travis, his temper had now subsided. And he was now back into the sweet-talking mode, and he was sweet-talking her to stay for a little bit longer. Because he had, in preparation for his Cancun trip that he was going to be leaving on shortly, he had been working out, and he had been dieting. And so he really wanted to have pictures taken of him, tasteful pictures, to show his progress on what he's done with his dieting and working out. And he wanted Jodi, the photographer, to take those pictures of him. And so she did. They went upstairs and he went into the shower. And Jodi began snapping pictures of him. Tasteful pictures, waist-up pictures for Travis. She was snapping picture after picture after picture. And you can see that this one was taken at, these pictures are ultimately found and time-stamped. So you'll see that this picture was taken at 5:29 in the afternoon and 20 seconds. The next picture is the last picture of Travis taken in the shower. And you can see that in this picture, you can't tell so much if he's sitting or standing, but you can see that his shoulders are out. And in the next picture, you can see that his shoulders are out sitting on his knee. There's a difference of a little over a minute between the two pictures. This was the last picture of Travis taken in the shower during their photo session. Because the next picture is taken when Jodi accidentally drops Travis's camera. You can see that it's not an intentional picture because one, it's blurry, but two, it's of the ceiling, facing up. Jodi accidentally drops Travis's camera. And as that camera was falling, that was enough for Travis, because he lunged at Jodi in anger, knocking her to the ground in the bathroom where there was a struggle. Jodi's life was in danger. In just a minute from this picture, we go to the next picture, where it's Travis's body. He's clearly injured already in a minute. Now that very brief moment of time, a minute, is not the result of premeditation. It is not the result of a planned out attack.
Objection, argument.
Sustained.
The evidence will show that it is not the result.
Objection, argument.
Counsel approach.
It is just 1 minute of time between the camera falling until you see the picture of Travis with blood. 1 minute. In that 1 minute, had Jodi not been forced to defend herself, none of us would be here. In that 1 minute, had Jodi not chosen to defend herself, she would not be here.
Of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Esteban Flores.
Spell your first and last name.
Esteban, E-S-T-E-B-A-N. Flores, it's F-L-O-R-E-S.
Okay. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Your name, sir?
My name is Esteban Flores,
Who do you work for?
the City of Mesa Police Department.
And what do you do for them?
I'm currently assigned to the homicide unit as a detective.
Drawing your attention back to June of 2008, where were you assigned?
I was assigned in homicide.
And did you have occasion when you were assigned to this unit to investigate the killing of somebody by the name of Travis Alexander?
Yes, I did.
With regard to that, what were your duties, or what were you assigned to do?
I was assigned as the lead case agent for this particular case.
Lead agent, what are you required to do?
Respond to the scene, investigate the actual crime scene, talk to witnesses, and basically try to solve the crime.
When were you first called out to the home?
I was called out on the 9th, just a little after 10 o'clock at night.
And did the investigation begin then, or did it sort of get started the next day?
It got started the next day.
Why is that? Why didn't you do that at night?
Well, at that point, we began talking to some witnesses who were at the scene, but we needed to get a search warrant to get into the house before we began the initial scene investigation.
And that search warrant wasn't available until the next day.
Correct.
And the next day while you were or that night while you were at the scene, were you notified that somebody wanted to talk to you?
Yes.
And who was the person that wanted to talk to you that night?
That night was Jodi Arias.
And was it a telephone call that she made?
Yes.
Did you take the call that night of June 9th, 2008?
No, I did not.
How about the next day? Did you, when you were out, what happened the next day? Did you go to the scene?
Yes, I was at the scene.
About what time did you get there?
Actually, I was still there from the night before.
And during that day, the 10th now, correct?
Yes.
Did you receive any indication that Jodi Arias wanted to talk to you?
Yes, I received a phone call from a fellow officer stating that a female by the name of Jodi Arias wanted to talk to me.
And did she leave a telephone number?
Yes, she did.
So this is the second attempt that has been made, correct?
Yes.
About what time were you notified of this second attempt by the defendant?
It was in the morning, before 10 o'clock or so.
Did you then return that call?
Yes, I did.
And about what time?
Right around that same time.
And prior to speaking to this individual, well, let's do it this way. Whenever you talk to witnesses, do you always Mirandize them or not?
No.
With regard to this telephone call with her, did you Mirandize her?
No.
Why not?
She wasn't in custody.
So Miranda warnings are only required when somebody's in custody, correct?
Yes.
So this telephone call that you had with her, was it something that you tape recorded or not?
Yes, I did tape record it.
And during this telephone call, was there a discussion about whether or not Travis Alexander had a gun?
Yes.
I'm going to show you exhibit number 273. Did you listen to this before you came to court today?
Yes, I did.
And is this the portion of the recording that you had on June 10th involving whether or not Travis Alexander had a gun?
Yes.
I move for the admission of exhibit number 273.
Any objection?
No, this one I haven't heard of.
Well, can I call you again if I need more information? Or if I have another question? Do you have any questions I can answer for you?
Yeah, do you know when all this happened? I mean, I got a call last night, but is there any word on?
Sometime between Thursday and last night. We're not sure yet. We haven't been appointed yet.
And you said that maybe multiple people, because he's a big guy. Maybe you can't talk about this, but was there like any kind of weapon used, or was there a gun? Was there?
I can't say what type of weapon was used, but yeah, I'm guessing there was a weapon used by the type of injuries that were left behind. Do you know of him having any weapons at all in the house?
His two fists.
That's it?
Really? No, yeah.
Okay. No handguns or rifles or...
No, he wasn't one to keep any of that I
fighting knives or anything like that?
No, he was more into like wrestling and UFC, and he said he had just bought a punching bag, and he's like, I love beating the crap out of the punching bag, But
That's a portion of the conversation, correct?
Yes, it is.
Did the conversation also deal with their relationship, their dating life, and that sort of thing?
Yes, it did.
To show you exhibit number 272, this is also another clip. Does that deal with that portion of your conversation with her?
Yes.
And this is the initiating point of the conversation, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Move for the admission of Exhibit 272.
Judge, I'm going to continue to do these excerpts haven't been provided to defense beforehand. The take has, but I don't know what excerpt was that.
Counsel approach.
And did so approximately 3 years ago.
All right, Exhibit 272 is admitted.
hours. Interview with Jodi, Arias. Number 2008 1610804.
Hello?
Hello, can you speak to Jodi, please?
This is Jodi.
Hey, Jodi, this is Detective Steve Flores with Mesa, Arizona Police Department.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good. I just got a message from one of my patrol officers that you needed to talk to me about something.
Well, I just wanted to offer any assistance that I might have. I was a really good friend of Travis's, and I just, I know that I don't know a lot of anything, but...
What have you heard so far?
I heard that he passed away, and that it was... I don't know. I've heard all kinds of rumors. I heard there was a lot of blood. I heard that his roommate found him, or his friend found him, or people were... I'm sorry. It's all... I'm upset, but I've heard that nobody's been able to get a hold of him for almost a week, and that was about the last time I spoke to him too. Which is actually why I thought my friend said I should call you anyway and let you know the last time I talked to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any help we can get from anybody who had any kind of contact with him, any phone contact.
I used to talk to him quite regularly. I used to live there. I live in Northern California now. But after I moved a few months ago, and after I moved, we kept in touch very regularly, and kind of fell back a little bit. It got down to about a couple times a week, but I hadn't heard from him. I talked to him on Tuesday night. I looked at my phone records on the internet to check, and I definitely talked to him Tuesday night.
Okay. So was that your cell phone, or?
Yeah, that was my cell. It's the only phone I have.
Okay. Is this the number that I called?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that was Tuesday night. Do you remember about what time?
I think it was, I want to say like 9:15, but I think it was sometime between 8 and 10. But I know it wasn't as late as 10. Probably between 8:30 and 9:30 more so. Narrow, I think.
And what did you guys talk about?
It was brief. I was driving out to Utah, and he was like, "Are you gonna come out and see me?" And I'm like, "No." And he's supposed to make a trip up here at the end of the month because thing that we are doing. It's called there's a book called 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, and it's been featured on the Travel Channel and all that. And we sort of got into that last year where we were starting to see all these different places on the list, and we thought, 1,000 places is a lot of places, but why not? That would be a fun goal. So we each kind of have that goal, and one of the places is the Oregon Coast and the Shakespearean Festival, and so he was going to come up here for that, and we were just going to go see that in Crater Lake and just different landmarks. And
was that trip already scheduled, or just something you guys talked about? It wasn't officially dated, but I had been trying to reach in so that I could solidify my own schedule because I was planning on making a trip down there soon. But it was supposed to happen
last week, and that didn't work out. So he was going to leave for Cancun today, and then he said as soon as he gets back from Cancun, he was canceling the trip because he's going to drive up the coast. And when he reaches me, we'll go do some things, and then he'll continue on to Washington and see some friends up there. And then I guess that was supposed to happen before the beginning of July. July, he was supposed to go to Washington, D.C.
Okay. Did he have any issues with anybody here in town? Any enemies, anybody that wanted to do him harm?
You know, got his tires slashed. It was last year. He said he was worried about that. And I was worried about that. He never locked his doors. And I would tell him, lock your doors. And he's like, you're not my mom, you know. And he comes from a bad city. He comes from Ruby, California, which is gangs and violence. And I come from a similar type of neighborhood in California. So my parents and I, we've always locked our doors, and that's just my habit. He doesn't have that habit, and he lives in a great neighborhood, and it's never been an issue. Nothing has ever been stolen. Nothing has ever been. He's never been, broken into, and he had his tires slashed. I don't remember when it was. It was last year, sometime around Christmas, I think. And other than that.
Now, how would you describe your relationship with him?
We dated for like 5 months, and we broke up, and we continued actually to see each other for quite a bit. Right up until I moved.
When did you guys break up?
We officially broke up June 29th of last year. But we didn't. Even though we broke up, we were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend. We decided to remain friends. But I kind of feel embarrassed talking about this, but it was more than friends, but it wasn't boyfriend and girlfriend. It was more like kind of buddies. You know what I mean?
Okay. So you guys were not romantically together at any time, or?
We were intimate, but I wouldn't say romantic as far as the relationship goes. But we were in no way headed toward marriage or talking anything about that. We hung probably sometimes.
Now you say intimate. Does that include like a sexual relationship with him?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. I know it's kind of embarrassing to talk about stuff
I know,
like that, but you don't know me, so.
Yeah, and if you could just keep it confidential for now, because I know that he's Mormon. He's not seriously looked down upon in our church, and I'm telling you this to help in any way I can.
Okay, I appreciate it. So you actually moved back to California a couple of months ago?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, what date was that? Do you remember?
I don't remember the exact date. I have the dates I rented the U-Haul. It was early April. Like before April 10th. So it was after the 1st, but before the 10th. So I'm guessing 7th, 8th, 9th maybe. I'd have to check the dates of those.
Did you stop by the house when you rented the U-Haul to say goodbye to him?
Oh yeah. In fact, after I was almost moved out completely out of my house for about a week afterward, and I just stayed at his house the whole time. I practically lived there, even when I was there. I spent the night there several times a week while I lived there. I came over and I cleaned his house a lot. He paid me a little bit every month to keep his house nice and clean. Sort of like a housekeeper.
Did you ever happen to meet any of his roommates at that time?
I knew his group really well at the time. Various roommates. Some have moved out. One guy moved to Utah, and one guy moved to Phoenix. Zach I don't know if Zach is still there. I think he is.
Yeah, he is.
I knew Zach because I met him, and we sort of connected because he's a photographer like I am, and he took the room that Aaron was in previously. So yeah, Zach.
What do you think about Zach? What do you think his relationship is with your ex-boyfriend?
He seemed like a nice guy. When I first met him, he seemed just like a normal guy. He's a returned missionary and he served. Okay, good. I didn't lose you. He served his mission. I think in Arizona. And he liked it so much that he moved back to New Travis from church. So, Yeah, him and his girlfriend were there. I think there was some alcohol there at one time, and Travis was suspicious about it, but he said he used it for cooking. You know, that's fine, because, you know, Mormons don't drink alcohol, but,
Well, some do.
yeah, so they're not supposed to. And Travis, you know, that's another thing when it came to that. We call it the word of wisdom, no alcohol, tobacco, drugs, or coffee or tea. And he was just super, super, super strict on that. Yeah, he wouldn't even take Excedrin for a headache because it had caffeine. Like, he's so strict on that. I'm a little less strict on that. I'll pop Excedrin any day, but...
There's a lot of Diet Cokes in the fridge.
Yeah, they're not Travis's, I can guarantee that. He wouldn't even touch Coke. So, it's one of his other roommates, I guess.
Okay, and that was around April that you last saw him, right?
Early April.
You haven't been back in town since then?
No, I haven't at all.
Okay. I thought somebody had mentioned your name, and you've been back in town for like a week or a couple of days.
Oh, I've been thinking about going there. So yeah, I've been definitely planning on heading down there.
But you haven't physically been here since you left?
Since I moved, no, I haven't. I was gonna go this week actually while he was in Cancun and stay at his house, but it's just not in the budget. So.
Was that something that you guys had scheduled, that you were going to come down and stay at his house when he was gone?
Yeah, no, actually, not. That's what I emailed him about last week, because it was kind of last minute. Because I was going to go, I'm looking at a calendar here, I was going to go not this week, but the next, and then he was going to come up here that following week, which was before July. And it all sounds kind of weird, we're all like travelers. And I figured, you know, it would be a good idea if I would have a place to stay. His house is open all the time to friends. I mean, anybody in his business or anybody that comes to visit, he gives up his bed. He'll sleep on the couch. He lets them have the whole room. So it just didn't seem like, he said the door is always open, so I would have felt totally okay just showing up and staying at his house and eating his frozen dinners, et cetera, et cetera. And he would have been fine with that too. And I just, you know, he said just always give me a heads up. So I asked him, you know, let me know if that's cool. If not, I'll make other arrangements. And I never heard back.
And when was that email sent out?
Just a few days ago. I'm in front of the computer, so I can check right now for you.
Yeah, if you can do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I just log into my account.
What's his email address?
Yeah, to his email.
Yeah, well, what is his email address, you know? Offhand.
His email is travis.alexander@gmail.com. Let's see. I sent one on June 7th. Haven't heard back from you. He got a little bit upset when I said I wasn't driving out to see him, but he gets upset real easily. I don't know, he likes to hang it over me a little bit, and we kind of guilt each other sometimes.
So you guys still had a fairly decent relationship as friends?
We did. We had a really
people that we talked to said that you guys, that your relationship was kind of rocky, and it got a little crazy at times, or...
It did. What happened was when I broke up with Travis around last year, because it was all really dumb. It was a bunch of drama. I had the suspicion that he was cheating on me, and so I looked in his phone to find out, and I found all these text messages, and like it just all blew up, and it was like we realized we couldn't trust each other. So I mean, we broke up at that point, but we were still attracted to each other, and we still loved each other. So it wasn't the best thing, but we still hung out all the time together. And it didn't really help either of us to move on, because I haven't really dated anyone since. And he told me that he hadn't dated anyone since, but then he told me that he has. So it's all been kind of weird, because we kept our dating lives sort of from each other, like a don't ask, don't tell policy, sort of. And I think it worked out. It was more convenient for us. I figured, you know, if he didn't have a girlfriend, then I'm okay coming over. And as long as he didn't think that I was with anybody, then he was fine too. So just the less we knew about each other's dating lives or romantic lives, the better the better off we were. So it was sent June 7th. Yeah, the one I sent about letting him know that I cannot.
And what town are you in again?
I'm sorry?
What town are you in again?
I'm in Yreka, California. Yreka.
Yreka?
Uh-huh.
Oh, where is that at?
It is 15 minutes from Oregon, and it's on Interstate 5.
Okay. All right. So just right. Oregon border.
Yeah. Finland.
Not close to the coast.
No, unfortunately.
I had some other questions. I'm trying to remember what they were. I mean, you kind of lived in the house for a while. You knew the surroundings inside the house, the kind of furniture he had, the bedding and stuff. Can you describe his bedroom bedding and stuff for me? It's kind of an unusual question, but...
No, that's fine. I spent a lot of time in there. He's got like, I don't know if it's like Egyptian cotton or whatever, but it's a really nice brown linen, and it's soft. It's not like flannel, but it's soft. And he always brags to everyone about his IntelliGel bed. Like, it's really comfy. So he's got a great mattress, and it's like, apparently it's like this $5,000 mattress that he picked up for really, really cheap because it was a showroom thing or it was a return, or somehow he got a really sweet deal on it. So it's a king size. I don't know if it's California or what, but it's a king size bed. It's kind of like I think it's like a sleigh bed. It's dark wood.
But the bedding is mainly like a brown linen, really nice cotton linen.
Yeah, he has, it's maybe different patterns on the sheets versus the comforter, but the sheets are brown and the comforter is brown and the pillowcases are brown.
What? So the color of the comforter is brown as well? Does it have any type of pattern or like tassels or edging?
No, I think it has stripes. I think it has like, and they're not like colored stripes, they're just like stripes in the brown pattern itself.
Oh, like, it's dark brown, but it's got a little bit darker brown, like threading?
Yeah, you can see that there's a pattern there. And the sheet may be more of like a checkered thing, I think, if I remember correctly. And his cover too, his bedspread is like, it's a down comforter that's white, and then it's got like I don't know what he used to call it, it has a special name. But
it's like a duvet cover?
Yes, it's a duvet.
What does the duvet look like?
It comes like it's got buttons on the end, and it covers the whole thing, and you slide the actual comforter inside the duvet, which is what you pull off to wash, or you can, that kind of thing. So, and we've, like many times, it's so hard to get in there with one person, so you kind of just grab the corners and we pull it in together on one side, and then you just sort of fluff it out and then button up the buttons.
Yeah, because that down kind of just shoves over in one corner. It doesn't want to spread out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it didn't have like any type of edging or tassels or anything like that you know of, like a light brown.
Not that I remember.
Is there anything in the house that resembled anything with some type of small tan, rope-ish kind of material or edging or anything like that? A blanket?
He may have pillows. Yeah, he may have had pillows. Yeah, he has pillows on his bed, not on the bed, but on the chair that's next to his bed.
Yeah.
There's those. There's also a round pillow that he uses to make his bed, and there's just one, and he puts it in the center. And there may be some kind of tassel thing on that.
Do you know anybody back here still that still has contact with him?
Yeah, lots of people, tons of people.
Is that how you found out about what had happened?
A friend of mine, Dan Freeman, called me last night. I met Dan through Travis.
Dan Freeman?
Freeman. Yeah, F-R-E-M-A-N.
Okay, yeah, we talked to him as well.
I met him last year with his sister when we all took a trip out to the Grand Canyon and to Sedona.
So he called you last night and told you what happened.
Yeah. He didn't have a lot of information.
Any idea what everybody's talking about, what they're saying, what their suspicions are?
They're saying, everything that I heard was that, and I got a lot of my information from Bishop Layton, more details, and he's basically that they took everybody and separated them, and I don't know who everybody is. I'm assuming Zach, because he was there, and his girlfriend, because I called Zach's cell phone, and she couldn't tell me anything, but she answered. And she said, there are a lot of people here that I don't know, but Zach's not here, so it didn't make sense. And I was confused, but she couldn't tell me anything. So I didn't get a lot out of her, but Bishop Layton said he was there for 4 hours, and they interviewed everybody, and they all went to the police station, and that they're treating it as a suspicious death. And I heard from my friend Dave Hall that there was a lot of blood, and I don't know if that's just a rumor that's going around or true. And I also heard that his services will be in California, but that they haven't released his body to his grandma yet. So that's all I've really heard so far.
Well, I can tell you that we're investigating it as a homicide.
Okay.
And not a suspicious death anymore. It's pretty obvious. And it's important for us to find out why somebody would want to do harm to him.
Exactly.
What kind of stuff he was possibly involved in, or maybe it just could have been as simple as a burglary, an intruder, or something that had gone wrong.
I'm wondering if he still, when they said suspicious death, I thought, well, he's trying to shed pounds for Cancun, so he looks good in boxers or a bathing suit or whatever, or swim trunks. And I know that he takes, or I thought he takes supplements, and he works out really, really hard. I've seen him work out, and it's a very intense routine, and he has these heavy dumbbells that he uses, and he's so strong. I mean, there are a couple times we've tried to wrestle just for fun and show me some moves, and there's just no, I don't see how anyone, unless maybe there were two people, I don't see how anyone could overpower him unless there was...
He's a pretty good-sized guy.
Yeah, he was close to 200 pounds, I think.
Yeah. It would take, I would say, two people, if not maybe more, to kind of overpower him. I've tried with officers, working this job, to take down a woman at 135 pounds who's out of control, and it's difficult to control, somebody like that. No ideas come to mind, why somebody would want to hurt him. Did he owe somebody money? Did he have any worries or concerns about anybody?
He did owe people money, but they were all good friends. They weren't, it wasn't a bad situation. It was, in fact, there was one family that lent him money that's very, very wealthy from what I understand, and it's not like it hurt them to lend him the money. Of course, they expected him to pay it back, and he had a very reasonable timeline. And they also had a really good collateral in case he didn't pay back. They owned a piece of stock that he owned, so if they didn't pay him back, it was like $6,000 or something. I think it was $6,000. But if he didn't get them paid back on time, then they would just keep his stock, which would eventually be worth over $25,000. So I don't think they were worried about that at all. That's the Hyatt family. Brent Hyatt was there last night. But that was when he was struggling financially several months back, and I don't know. I haven't talked to him about how that's going since. But I know that.
What's the situation with the car that was? Somebody mentioned a BMW.
Yeah, I'm buying his BMW.
Okay, because we found a check that was written by you to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was last month.
Yeah, I recently mailed him a check. I mailed him that and a few other things. I'm making payments to him.
Okay, and you still have that car right now?
No, it's actually not in my possession. I did the dumbest thing. I went and hooked it up to the U-Haul. Everything was cool and set to go. And I got the dolly where the back wheels are on the ground because it was cheaper.
Yeah.
And the U-Haul guy said, okay, drive it up here. Okay, stop, brake. And everything was cool. And I stopped the car, turned it off. both got in the car, left the door open so they could look at everything, and they shut the door and said, "You're good to go," and I took off, and this is going to sound really dumb, and I realize now that this is not how you tow a car, but I left it in first gear, and I headed down the highway, and I blew the engine to smithereens. It looked like it gave birth all over the highway. There was just black oil everywhere. And so it's sitting at Wes's Auto something, last time I checked. It's sitting there in Mesa, and the guy's been really nice about just keeping it until Travis figures out what he can do. We've called lawyers about it, and my lawyer said, have your insurance fix it, and his lawyer said your insurance might not fix it because it might be considered mechanical. So that's the last we talked about it. We've been, he's been real busy and hasn't had a lot of time to attend to it. And I have a vehicle right now, but not for much longer because I have to give it back to the bank. So, either way.
When did you mail that payment? End of May?
It was a few weeks ago. Yeah, it must have been.
So you're still making payments to that?
Oh yeah. In fact, that's my first payment because we just did this car deal like right before I moved, and he said we have a buyer's agreement too. I think that I typed out and emailed to him. We have, like he said, just get on your feet, and then start sending payments. And the agreement was X amount per month, whatever I could pay. So finally got a job and gave him that payment for $200.
What was $200 a month?
Yeah. It was $100 a month minimum. If you minimum. And if I could pay more, please. Kind of thing.
Okay. We did talk to certain people, and I don't want to tell you this. I don't want to make you feel bad, but they didn't have the best of things to say about you. They felt that you were either taking advantage of him or just hanging around when you weren't wanted. They mentioned that you would sometimes end up going into his house. You were in his house when he didn't want you there, and he would ask you to leave, but you would continue to return. There was also some talk about you spying on his email and Facebook accounts, those kinds of things.
He gave me his Facebook password and his MySpace password, and I gave him my Facebook password and my Gmail account password. And the reason we did that is because it was kind of dumb. We did that months and months ago, and we thought, what can we do to try to reestablish trust between us? And why don't we start with that? And so that's what we did, and then, it just didn't work. He got really upset finally, and he's like, this isn't working. And I said, all right, this is too much of a headache. Let's just change our passwords. So we did. We changed our passwords after that.
How long ago did you guys change them?
I changed mine, not long ago, probably 3 weeks ago, maybe. And I don't know about his because I haven't, once he made it clear that he wasn't comfortable with that anymore, I didn't even try to get back into his account anymore. So.
Yeah, I've been married almost 20 years, and I don't have my wife's email.
Really? I know it's.
You just have to trust sometimes.
It's true. It's true. And I told him, we've had hours upon hours of conversation, and I said, I just don't know if I could ever trust you again, and he doesn't know if he could ever trust me again because I might always want to get back into his phone and find out, does he really have something going on or what? Because, he did at one point, and so he said, yeah, I understand that, and he said, but if we were married, you would have all my passwords to everything because there wouldn't be anything to worry about.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's nice,
Yeah.
but we're not married. And as far as getting into his emails, that never happened. What he has on his computer is he would oftentimes just leave his computer on, and he'll leave his Gmail window up. And there were times when I got on his computer to look up other things, and if his Gmail window was open, then I would just close it. That was constantly getting into his email.
I had to mention that to you because we are getting a search warrant for his email, Gmail and Facebook. Those accounts, and we can't tell where those things were accessed from by IP addresses. And I just just want to make it clear that, that if you did access it from somewhere else at a certain time, if you access it from California, we're going to know.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now that I did.
Okay.
He gave me his passwords. Not the only accounts that I've accessed though were MySpace and Gmail because those were the only passwords that he gave me.
How long ago? When was the last time you actually accessed them?
Weeks ago, we had a conversation where it's like he made it clear that he wasn't comfortable with that anymore, and I said that's okay. And I changed my Gmail account password because he got into that too, and then he saw another guy's email there, and gave me a hard time about it. And so it just was dumb. We're both trying to move on, and we're both, I don't know, it was weird.
Seems like there was a lot of jealousy issues.
I think there might have been on both parts. For me, it wasn't so much jealousy as it was like I just wanted to know, I just wanted him to be honest. And for him, I think one of the reasons I moved was because we were spending too much time together and we weren't moving on, and wasn't able to. I mean, I guess I could have dated other people, but our social circles were so small that anytime you heard about something, it just wasn't good.
Did you move down here the first time because of him?
Yeah, I moved there because of him, and I moved away because of him. Primarily, I also moved away for financial reasons. I'm with my grandparents now, but there were three main reasons I moved here. One, I missed my family, two, financially, and three was because of Travis. And the main reason that I moved there was because of Travis.
Okay. Yeah, because when we first arrived on scene and started talking to people, some of his closest friends, began mentioning your name as, hey, you need to call her because she probably knows what happened to him, or she possibly had something to do with it.
Oh gosh, no,
that's how bad it was getting at the scene. And I needed to talk to you to find out why they would say something like that. Why they would start pointing fingers in your direction right away.
I don't know. Maybe because I'm the ex-girlfriend. We've had lots of fights.
Was there a lot of issues? I mean, obviously it wasn't a great relationship.
It was great for a while until we started fighting because I did the wrong thing and I got into his phone because I had a suspicion that he wasn't being faithful, and I found a bunch of text messages that were no good. And rather than being an adult about it and confronting him, I kept it in and I kind of let it fester, and I was miserable and I didn't know why, and I wanted to tell him, but I was worried that it would just lead to an unnecessary fight. And then I realized this was no kind of relationship, so it finally all came out, and he was really apologetic, but we just both realized that neither of us could be in an adult relationship, and that was June of last year. So at that point, we continued to see each other, a long time after that.
Well, I'm glad I did get a hold of you and you did call me, because it kind of clears up a lot of the questions I had, a lot of the concerns. It's not what I don't think it's what these people thought was going on. So,
I should probably tell you that Travis, when he got upset, he would send me really mean emails. He would send me mean text messages and things. You'll find probably some stuff on his Facebook. I know for sure you'll find one on his Facebook, and definitely in his Gmail, and you're welcome to access all of my accounts too if you want. With Travis...
Well, we're probably going to subpoena all his Facebook and Gmail and, everything to see who he was communicating with, what he was saying, what he was saying to him.
Okay.
I'm not sure how far back. We usually go 6 months to a year.
Okay.
But, in a case like this, we need to know, who had some type of beef with him, why they would do something like this to him.
Yeah.
I hate telling people over the phone, but, it's like I said, it is a homicide investigation. And it was an angry situation. And when we see like this, the first thing we think is these people hated each other. Somebody went in there to hurt him, and they did. And they hurt him really bad. And he's a big guy, and it would take, like I mentioned to you before, it would take more than one person to do this to him.
Can you?
And I was just hoping maybe you could kind of point me in the right direction. I'm talking to everybody that he knows that knows.
I went to a guy named Thomas Brown, and I don't think that, honestly, I haven't seen or heard from him since he was kicked out. I think his last name was Brown. I could try to find him on lbslinkup.com, but that was so long ago, though. That was last spring of 2007, March even. And what happened was he got kicked out because he was considered like borderline sexual predator, not like a rapist, but coming on to girls and that kind of thing. And it just really was down upon in the church. And so he was disfellowshipped, and Travis said, "You need to get out, get your stuff out of my house." And it wasn't a friendly situation. It was said over the phone because he and I were in Missouri and somewhere back east, just touring, and Thomas was.
So he ended up kicking him out at that time.
Yeah, he kicked him out at the time. But Thomas, he's a really big guy, but he doesn't seem like he doesn't seem violent. He seemed pretty gentle. He just seemed like a little bit thuggish, but like he was trying to act the part, not because he was that. Because he thought it would like attract chicks or something. I don't know. So he seems, honestly, like I didn't know him that well, but he seemed like a big dumb teddy bear.
Sir, as part of this conversation, was there also a discussion between you and the defendant about whether or not she had some regrets about not being there at the time of the attack?
Yes.
And is that memorialized in this letter 274 as to what her feelings are about whether or not she should have been there?
Yes.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 274.
Again, Judge, I'm going to object to the admission of another excerpt that I have not.
Please approach.
And what was your first name? Steve. Steve, okay. And I just wanted to say, again, that Travis and I had an on-off kind of relationship. We just weren't talking a lot the last several weeks, a couple times a week, and I just keep saying, what if I just gone down there, what if I had never moved and I would have been there and I could have, I don't know.
So you guys continue to talk this whole time, huh?
Yeah, definitely. It was more sporadic. But we usually talk late at night, like 12, anywhere between 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. and like 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. He was kind of.
Did he have any other cell phones besides? Well, we found one cell phone.
No, he had. I'm pretty sure he didn't. Otherwise, I'd know about it. He had his Verizon cell phone and he had his landline.
I don't have any other questions at this time, however, I will recall them.
Cross-examination.
Hello, Detective.
Hello.
I was going to ask you about the portion of your work that Mr. Martinez just spoke to you about, all right?
Okay.
But before we do that, let me back up just a little bit. You mentioned that you were called out to the scene.
Yes.
Okay. How does that work exactly?
The call usually comes in from a patrol officer to my supervisor. We had 2 supervisors at that time in the homicide unit, and they make the decision on who to call out to investigate that particular homicide that night.
Okay. So when you received the call asking you to go out to this address on Queensboro, what information did you have?
The only information I had was that there was a suspicious death, and they gave me the address on Queensboro, and they didn't have any further information.
Okay. And you recall, as best you can estimate, how long a time period was it between the time that you received that call and by the time you arrived at the house on Queensboro?
It was within an hour.
Okay. And describe for us, if you will, what the scene was when you arrived. What was going on when you pulled up to the house?
Well, the house was cordoned off with police caution tape around the entire residence. Actually, the street was blocked off as well. And there were police vehicles and patrol officers and patrol supervisors there at that time.
Okay. You say the street was blocked off. Was that just in front of the house, or was that the entire street?
No, just in front of the house.
Okay. And it seems to me like there were some, based on what Officer Williams told us, there were some people around the house. Where were they?
They were off on one of the corners, probably about 30 to 40 yards away from the house.
Okay. And why don't you tell us, were there several officers there, or just kind of give us a description of that?
Anywhere from around 4 to 6 officers, I would say.
Okay. So the crime scene had been cordoned off. The people were put into a certain area, correct?
They weren't really put in an
Okay.
area, but they were off on a corner somewhere. There were neighbors and, from what I could tell, friends of Travis.
Okay. And tell us what you did when you got up to the house.
We first met with the patrol supervisor,
Okay.
uniform patrol supervisor there, and we received a briefing of what they've received so far, the information, and what they've done up to that point.
Okay. And that was the night of the 9th?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you said you were there till the early morning hours of the 10th?
We were there pretty much the entire day, the rest of the day as well.
Okay. So how long did you stay on that first night?
I don't recall the exact time, but I know it was evening. It was dark when we left
Okay.
on the 10th.
Okay. And then you returned the 10th?
Yes.
In the morning?
Yes.
Okay. And this phone call we just heard about, we just heard excerpts from, I should say. When did that take place?
That took place late morning, early afternoon on the 10th.
Okay. And then when you referenced during that phone call, you just heard it, correct?
Yes.
You referenced people talking about Miss Arias being a stalker, or always around when she wasn't supposed to be, that sort of thing. Where did that information come from?
That information came from some of my fellow officers and fellow detectives who I assigned to go talk and interview some of the people at the scene.
Okay. So they conduct interviews with these various people, and then you discuss what they learned
Yes.
with them. Okay. And did you talk to anyone specifically that night?
We conducted some interviews at the Mesa Police Station. Mimi Hall, who was here testifying, we talked to her and some of the roommates as well.
Okay.
There was 2 roommates in particular.
And that was part of your portion of the initial investigation, right?
Yes.
The part you did yourself. Okay. I want to again focus in on that phone call. Miss Arias told you that Travis's weapons were his 2 fists. You recall hearing that?
Yes.
A few minutes ago? Okay. She also mentioned that he, I think her words were to the effect of, loves beating the crap out of a punching bag.
Yes.
Okay. Was there a punching bag found in the home?
Yes, there was.
Okay. And where was that located?
It was, I would say, the downstairs living room area.
Okay. And could you describe that for us? Because I know sometimes there's punching bags that sit on the ground, sometimes hang from the ceiling.
It's one of the type that sits on the ground. It has the larger base. I don't know, it's filled with water or sand or something.
Okay.
And then it has the punching bag padded area above it.
Okay. And when you found that, or you observed that, and I should back up, you did enter the home that night, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you observed that punching bag, did it look like it was in place, like it had been used recently? Do you know?
I couldn't tell.
Okay. She also mentioned in this phone call that she was employed by Mr. Alexander to clean his home.
Yes.
Okay. Did you later went through, you talked also in this phone call about going through, subpoenaing his Facebook, his MySpace, Gmail, all that stuff, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you review those materials?
No, I never subpoenaed him at that time. It was at a later date.
Okay, at a later date.
Yes.
But you did eventually get to reviewing those materials?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember how much later that was?
A year,
Okay.
year and a half.
Year and a half
I
later.
can't remember the specific date, but yeah.
All right. Do you remember seeing an email from Mr. Alexander to Miss Arias where he provides her a picture of the French maid outfit that he would like her to don when she cleans his apartment, or his home, excuse me?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
All right. You also asked Miss Arias about rope or tassels, or when you were talking about the bedding, you specifically brought up rope.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you tell us why you did that?
In part of the scene, we actually saw a small piece of fabric. It appeared to be maybe part of a tassel. And in the bathroom.
Okay. A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Arias about rope or tassels, or when you were talking about the bedding, you specifically brought up rope or tassels. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you tell us why you did that?
In part of the scene, we actually saw a small piece of fabric. It appeared to be maybe part of a tassel, and it was right in the middle of the scene in the bathroom.
Okay. A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
In part of the scene, we actually saw a small piece of fabric. It appeared to be maybe part of a tassel, and it was right in the middle of the scene in the bathroom.
Okay. A moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
If I may approach, Your Honor. Detective, I'm going to hand you Exhibit 271. Exhibit 270. $269. $268. $267. $266. And $265. Now, Detective, I've showed you, do you recognize the exhibits I've put before you?
Yes.
Okay. And as it relates, there are some that relate to the bathroom area, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And there are some that are elsewhere in the house, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But you recognize all those photos as true and accurate depictions of the crime scene that you saw that night?
Yes, they are.
Judge, I'd move for the admission of those exhibits.
Any objection?
No.
Exhibit 265, 266, 267, 268, 269, 270, and 271 are admitted.
May I call this, Your Honor?
May.
And for the record, Detective, we're going to begin with Exhibit 270. Could you describe for us what you see there?
Yeah, it's that piece of fabric.
Okay.
Listed as number 8.
Okay.
With the placard 8.
And that is the rope or tassel you were referring to with Miss Arias during the phone call?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Detective, I'm going to show you Exhibit 271. And could you advise us what we're seeing there?
Same one as the last one, just at a different angle.
Okay. And again, for the record, Exhibit 265.
Yes, another
Okay.
piece of rope or tassel.
All right. And that was, just so we're clear as well, that's another piece, correct? Not the same.
A separate piece,
Okay.
also in the bathroom area.
And Detective, if you could describe for us what we see in this exhibit.
That's same as the last one, item number 3, different angle.
And for the record, this is Exhibit 266. Let's see here. Detective, could you describe for us what you see in this exhibit?
You talking about the same placard, number 3?
2, 3,
same.
and 4.
Yeah, same as the last. There were also other items there. I believe the other 2 and 4 were hair fibers.
Okay. And as we were talking earlier, pieces of this rope-like substance were also found elsewhere in the home, were they not?
Yes.
I want to show you, for the record, exhibit number 268. And could you describe for us what we see there?
Yes, another piece of the thread or string, tassel, and this was actually on the stairs leading up to the bedroom.
Okay. And this would be that same piece of rope, just further depicting the stairs, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, without the placard.
Okay. Now, in terms of choosing to photograph these items, or do you direct a person to take certain pictures, or how does that work?
Yes, it's up to my direction.
Okay. And so then on, be it on the 9th or the 10th, your attention was drawn to this rope and thought it might be of significance in your investigation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The other bit of conversation you had with Ms. Arias dealt with, she told you when you were discussing the emails, you were talking about getting into his emails, and she was talking about discussions they had while in the email account. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recall her saying that he had said several mean things to her?
Yes.
In these emails? And I guess according to your testimony previously, it was about a year and a half later that you actually looked at these emails, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you remember seeing emails in which Mr. Alexander referred to Miss Arias as a, quote, three-hole wonder?
Yes, I do.
Objection, hearsay.
As a slut?
Yes.
As a whore?
Yes.
Thank you, Detective.
Redirect.
Why was he referring to her like that? What had she done?
Speculation.
Sustain.
Well, you read that email, right? You responded to defense counsel, didn't you?
Yes.
Any knowledge that you have comes from that email, doesn't it?
Yes.
What did that email say? Why was he upset?
Objection calls for speculation.
Approach, please. 5, and we will start having. Please be seated. The record will show the presence of the jury, the defendant, and all counsel. Mr. Martinez, you may continue with redirect.
Your name, sir?
Esteban Flores?
And you were the person testifying before lunch, correct?
Yes.
Please take a look at Exhibit 275. Are you familiar with that? Yes or no?
Yes, I am.
And with regard to that item, well, what is it, first of all?
It's a copy of instant message emails sent back and forth between Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander.
And you were asked previously on cross-examination about this reference to a three-hole wonder, correct?
Yes.
Is that the document that contains that reference?
Yes, it is.
With regard to that reference involving that particular comment, why was that comment made as indicated in that document?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained as phrased.
Well, let's go to page 8 at the bottom. At the bottom. What is he complaining about?
What page was that again, sir?
8 at the bottom. Four lines from the bottom.
References to being used sexually by Miss Arias.
What is he saying?
Specifically, let me read it from here. I think I was little more than a dildo with a heartbeat to you.
And that's what he's saying to her, right?
Yes.
In the previous pages, pages 1 and 2 and 3, do they talk about whether or not to tell the truth?
Yes.
I'm going to object, Your Honor. This goes beyond answering the questions post and cross.
Mr. Martinez?
It's part of the same document, and it's part of the reason why he's calling what he's calling her.
There's no link, Judge. I mean, he's had to speculate on the link.
Counsel approach and bring the transcript, please.
Starts with Facebook.
Yes, just read it though.
Okay. Me.
No. Read it to yourself.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to read it out loud. Okay.
And in terms of the reference to the three-hole wonder, it's toward the bottom, correct?
Yes.
Go ahead and read the next page, which is 416, to yourself.
Okay.
What is the context of that comment?
The context throughout those 2 pages is Travis Alexander and Jodi Arias are having a conversation, and Travis is complaining about her lying to him.
Sir, you were asked about some fibers, and these are set out in exhibits numbers 265 through 271. Do you remember those? And I'll start with 265, for example.
Yes.
First of all, you see the scale on there, right? This is exhibit number 265.
Yes.
And what is that word there?
It says metric.
And with regard to these spaces in between, in terms of the metric scale, what are they? Centimeters, millimeters, kilometers, what are they?
The large section is the small ones, millimeters.
And how many millimeters are there in an inch?
Approximately 25.
It's a little bit more than 25,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
How much?
Well, there's 2.4 centimeters in an inch, and then there's 10.
So it's 2.54 or 2?
Yeah, 2.54.
So you're talking 25.4 millimeters to an inch, right?
Yes.
And so that will tell us, for example, by looking at this, by counting out 25 millimeters, how much an inch is, right?
Yes.
With regard to those particular items there, can you tell whether or not this really is a piece of a rope?
It looks more like a small thread.
And if you take a look at exhibits 63 and 81, take a look at those, first of all.
Yes.
Do you recognize those?
Yes.
What are those photographs of?
Photographs of the interior of Travis Alexander's house, more in particular his bedroom and part of the bathroom near the shower.
And were those taken back at the time of the investigation of the crime in June of 2008?
Yes.
I move for the admission of exhibit 63 and 81.
No objection.
Exhibit 63 and 81 will be admitted.
Let's take a look at Exhibit 63. What are we looking at here?
A photograph of Travis Alexander's bedroom.
And specifically, what is this item here?
Those are throw pillows.
And what's around the corners of those throw pillows?
Tassel-like fibers.
Those tassel-like fibers, if we take a look at exhibit number 265, you were there. Can you tell us whether or not they are similar to those?
Yes, they are.
And let me show you another exhibit. It's exhibit number 271. You see this that's on there? This item here, you see that?
Yes, I do.
Take a look at exhibits numbers 64 and 68.
Okay.
Those are photographs. Are they true and accurate depictions of an area and an item from the scene that existed back when the investigation was being conducted in June of 2008?
Yes, they are.
Move to the admission of exhibits 64 and 68.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 64 and Exhibit 68 will be admitted.
This is exhibit 64. And orient us a little bit. What are we looking at here?
Looking at the interior of Travis.
This is exhibit 64. And orient us a little bit. What are we looking at here?
Looking at the interior of Travis Alexander's bedroom, looking from just behind the entry door. You can actually see the door on the right-hand side, door handle. And you're looking, what direction? Kind of like a northeast direction into the bedroom.
What does this door lead to?
That one is actually to the closet that parallels the hallway into the bathroom.
And exhibit number, and there is something in the middle here, this photograph, the first one, 264, correct? Right there?
Yes, the sandals.
Okay. Then if we take a look at exhibit 68, that's a close-up of what?
The sandals in the middle of the room.
And with regard to these sandals, do they have any covering on them where a person would step?
Yes, full of fibers.
And you see this right here. What is this? These items that are sticking out from around the sandals?
Those are the actual fibers that the sandals are covered with.
And then if we take a look at exhibit number 271, what is that? In your opinion, is that consistent with having come from those shoes?
Yes, it is consistent.
In looking through this whole house, was there ever a rope that was found?
No.
So if there had been a rope there, and you didn't find it, what would have happened to the rope?
Objection calls for speculation. It's beyond the scope of cross.
Overruled.
We would have taken it.
I know, but if it wasn't there, would you have taken it?
No.
If somebody had taken it before you, would you have taken it?
No, I couldn't have.
But did you find any long lengths of rope or anything like that when you were there?
No.
And did you find, for example, in Exhibit 63, was that bedroom examined?
Yes, it was.
Was the area here around the bed examined?
Yes.
Was the area, Exhibit number 64, was the area right around here examined?
Yes.
And I mean the lower portion. Did any officers look underneath the bed?
Yes.
Did they look behind the headboard?
Yes.
Was there ever a knife found anywhere near there?
No.
Was there ever any rope found anywhere near there? In other words, any of these little strands that we're talking about, were any of those found anywhere near the bed?
No.
You talked about cordoning off the street and that sort of thing when you got there, and the house being cordoned off. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
What's the purpose of that?
To secure the residence, to keep anybody from going in and disturbing any evidence.
So that from the time that the police received the call till the time the first police officer came, that meant that nobody had access to that place, correct?
That's correct.
And how long did you keep the scene open, or how long was the scene secured, so to speak?
Almost 3 days.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
I have one question from a juror. Are there any other questions from the jury? If there are questions, ladies and gentlemen, raise your hand, and if you need some time to write it out, just let me know and we will wait for you. Counsel, please approach. Number 272, 273, and 274 from the same conversation.
What exhibits are those? Could I see them again?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Mr. Norman, you may recross and follow up on the juror question if you have anything.
Thank you, Your Honor. A moment, please.
Detective, do you still have exhibits up with you?
Yes.
And if I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Detective, I'm going to well, actually, I'll tell you what, we will
Put up Exhibit 63. Again, Mr. Martinez showed you that just a minute ago. You recall seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the observations you made, and I believe what you told us was that this picture accurately depicts what you saw at the crime scene on June 9th and or June 10th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it would appear that those pillows are in an unmolested state. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. And you recall Mr. Martinez also asked you about a pair of sandals or flip-flops with some fibers on them, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me step back a bit. Mesa Police Department, how long have you been employed there?
19 years?
Okay, so you're pretty familiar with the practices and the procedures and those sort of things, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I suspect then, could you tell us whether Mesa Police Department has a crime lab?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And what sort of things does that crime lab do?
Everything from DNA typing, fingerprint analysis, blood work, those kinds of things.
Okay. So if they had known fibers, for example, from these pillows or from sandals or that sort of thing, they could compare that against items you found at the crime scene, correct?
Our lab does not do that.
Okay. So you could there would be no way for you to compare?
We would have to send those out to another lab.
Okay. Was that done?
No.
Okay. So the estimation you're making that these are similar characteristics are just based on your observation, not any actual data or testing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Martinez?
Those 3 exhibits, or the 3 DVDs that you have in front of you, those were from the same conversation, correct?
Yes, they were.
What date was the conversation that you had of those 3 DVDs?
They were June 10th, 2008.
And who initiated that? In other words, I know you made the call, but were you returning a call?
I was returning a call, a message to call Jodi Arias back.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
You may step down. The state may call its next witness.
State calls Heather Connor.
Can you spell your first and last name, please?
Heather, H-E-A-T-H-E-R, Connor, C-O-N-N-E-R.
Raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Please walk right around and have a seat. You may proceed.
May I have your name, please?
Yes, my name is Heather Connor.
Who do you work for?
I work for the Mesa Police Department.
And how long have you worked for the Mesa Police Department?
I was hired in September of 2004.
And what were your duties when you were initially hired?
When I was originally hired at the Mesa Police Department, I was hired as a crime scene technician. I was promoted in June of 2005 to latent print examiner.
And what kind of, do you have to have a degree for that sort of thing? What kind of experience did you have or education prior to being hired?
I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in anthropology and journalism. I have an Associate of Science degree in forensic technology.
And what were your duties back in June of 2008?
In June of 2008, I was a latent print examiner. Among my duties includes performing the comparative analysis of unknown finger and palm prints that are recovered from crime scenes and items of evidence to known subjects' prints. I also process evidence in the laboratory using various chemicals and powders, and I respond to major crime scenes. I take photographs, collect evidence, and process for latent prints.
With regard to this issue of latent fingerprints, what is a latent fingerprint?
A latent fingerprint is a chance impression. On the palmar sides of your hands and the soles of your feet, we have a specialized type of skin that's called friction ridge skin. It's very similar to corduroy in that there are peaks and valleys to that skin. And throughout the day, you can collect different materials on the surface of your skin, including oils from your face or hair, grease from the food that you eat, or other things throughout your day. And when you touch a surface, you can leave an impression of the arrangement of friction ridges on your hands or palms onto that surface.
So as I understand what you're saying is that these impressions that are left behind, well, let me ask it this way. Are they left behind every single time that a person, for example, touches a surface like I'm doing here on this podium?
No, there are many reasons a print may or may not be left behind.
Well, does environment have anything to do with whether or not this impression is going to be left behind?
Yes.
Specifically, what environmental factors affect whether or not a print is going to be left behind?
If it's a very warm day, most of the perspiration on your fingers is water. It can evaporate. So if it's a very warm day, you may not leave an impression behind. You may have very dry hands. The residue left behind could evaporate from the surface. If it's been raining, the residue could be washed away. Environmental factors like that can affect whether a print is left behind or not.
How about a surface? For example, if I get a hold of something that's made out of wood and I put my hands all over it, am I more or less likely to leave a chance or latent fingerprint behind? It's got a lot of holes in it. It's just a piece of wood.
I would say in that case, you're less likely to leave a latent print behind on a very rough, holey surface than a smooth, hard surface. If you think of a fingerprint as a rubber stamp and think about if you ink up a rubber stamp and press it on a very rough surface, you don't get a very clear impression of that stamp left behind. A fingerprint is the same sort of thing.
What about movement? What if I'm, for example, going through something and I'm moving very quickly and I slide my hand against the surface like I did of the podium there? Am I less or more likely to leave a fingerprint?
You may leave a fingerprint behind in that circumstance, but you could be smearing the fingerprint and the arrangement won't be visible. It won't be very clear based on the movement.
So you get these fingerprints. Let's assume that you actually left them. How do you go about determining who's the person that left it behind? Let's say in this world where you have billions and billions of people, you don't know who the person was that left it behind. That's why you're checking. So how is it that you go about effecting an identification?
The methodology that we use to compare fingerprints, it goes by the acronym ACE-V. That's ACE-V. That stands for analysis, comparison, evaluation, and verification. In the analysis phase, what an examiner will do is examine the latent impression to determine its overall suitability for comparison. The overall ridge flow of that print. Can I tell if it's a finger or a palm? Can I tell the orientation of the print? How clear is the information? Is there a great deal of difficulty in distinguishing between the raised portions, which would be the ridges, and the furrows? We're looking for 3 levels of detail in a fingerprint. Level 1 detail is the overall ridge flow, and in the fingers will be pattern type. And we're looking for level 2 detail. That's called ridge characteristics. There's many other terms that can be used, such as minutia, Galton detail, things like that. That's going to be where a ridge is flowing along and abruptly ends. Call that an ending ridge. You also have ridges that flow along and then branch into 2 ridges, and that's called a bifurcation. So that's the second level of detail that we're looking at in the analysis phase. The third level of detail is pores. On the friction ridge surfaces, there are pores that exude sweat. The location, shape, and size of those pores is visible in some impressions. And the other part of third level detail would be the shapes of the edges of the ridges themselves. So in the analysis phase, we're looking for all of that information. It's fact gathering. We're looking to see, do we have level 1 detail? Do we have level 2 detail? Do we have level 3 detail? That's all with just the latent impression. Then we move to the known impressions or exemplars, and we're performing an analysis
Well, let me stop you there.
Okay.
What if you don't know who the person is? When you go out to a scene, you really don't know, correct?
That's correct.
So are you familiar with something called APHIS?
Yes.
What is, APHIS is an acronym, correct?
It is.
And what does APHIS stand for?
APHIS is the Automated Fingerprint Identification System.
And without talking about the actual bank that's involved, I'm just talking about the machine. I don't want to know how the knowns go in there, okay? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. Does this machine help you then make a comparison to other knowns that may be around? Yes or no?
Yes.
And what is the advantage of having the APHIS system as opposed to a human being sitting down and making this comparison?
The APHIS system is a searching database. So we're able to enter a latent print into the database, the first joint of the fingers and the palms, and it will create a mathematical algorithm and bring back 10 candidates that the computer believes are close to this latent impression. The examiner then is able to...
Well, then let me stop you then. Are you telling me that the advantage of APHIS is speed?
Yes.
Because it can go through thousands upon thousands of fingerprints within a very short period of time, right?
Yes.
And if any of them are similar, then it spits it out, right?
Yes.
But as an examiner, that's not an identification, correct?
No, it's not.
Because then that's when the human person comes in, right?
Yes.
And then the human person does what with those candidates that have been spit out?
The examiner initially views the latent and the known impression on the screen one at a time and determines whether or not they have a hit. If a hit is declared, then a known exemplar, that known exemplar will be obtained by the examiner, and a one-to-one comparison will be performed between the latent and the known. The examiner is the one who does that final comparison.
In our talk today, one of the things that we keep referring to is that the fingerprints, and we've been talking about that. How about palms, for example? Are palms also unique to individuals, or is it a situation where the only comparison that can be done is involving the fingerprints?
No. The arrangement of skin on all the palmar surface of the hands is unique.
And so let's say that you have, does this APHIS system also have the palm prints in it that can be used or not?
Yes, it does.
When you look at a fingerprint and you're doing this comparison, are you then also able to orient it and find out what part of the hand is involved, whether it's one of the fingers or in the palm? Can you do that?
It depends on the quality of the latent.
Well, let's assume it's a great quality, the best quality you ever had. Can you do it then?
In many cases, yes.
And if you have the palm, you can tell what part of the palm it is then, right?
If there's enough information in the palm, you can use those to help determine where the latent is from.
So in other words, are you saying that if you have a palm print, you cannot tell what part of the palm print it is? What part of the palm it is?
There are latent impressions that are palm prints that are very clear that you cannot tell necessarily where it originates from.
On the hand?
Yes, correct.
But there are some that you can then, right?
Yes.
So that's part of what you do then, correct?
That is part of it.
Is that done out at the scene or is that done somewhere else?
The entry of latents into APHIS and the comparison of prints is done in the lab.
And so that the gathering of these latent fingerprints, how is that done out at the scene?
A majority of the processing that we'll do at a scene in order to collect latent prints is done with powder and lift tape.
And the others, which indicates that there may be others, what are the other processes that are out there?
There is some chemical processing techniques that we can use at the scene, depending on the type of residue that we believe a latent impression may have been left in.
In this particular case, for example, was black powder the only method that was used at the scene to attempt to gather latent prints?
No, it was not.
Why don't you tell me what those other processes were in this case?
Leucocrystal violet.
And what is that?
That is a chemical that reacts to the heme in hemoglobin to stain a dark purplish blue color if it comes into contact with it.
And what is the advantage of that? What is the advantage of this leucocrystal violet?
Leucocrystal violet, or LCV, does not react with the regular constituents of fingerprint residue. So if there's an impression that I believe is left potentially in oils or fats or lipids, that sort of thing, I would not use leucocrystal violet. Leucocrystal violet would be used to search for potential impressions that are left in blood, for example.
So the value of leucocrystal violet is that the print may have been left in a medium other than, for example, sweat or oils or something like that, correct?
That's correct.
And in the way you sort of seem to say it, it's specifically designed when you believe that perhaps the print is left in blood.
That's correct.
In this case, also again, as part of going to the scene, lifting fingerprints and that sort of thing, do you do anything with the evidence or items that are going to be taken back to the lab for future examination, whether they be latent fingerprints or whether they be anything else?
Yes, all items of evidentiary value are photographed and then collected by me, which are then in turn impounded into our evidence section.
It would seem to me, though, that if you have all these items of evidence out there, and if you're just photographing them and collecting them, that you're not going to know where you found something. So, for example, if there's some shoes over there, there's a gun over there, how are you going to know which is which?
The way in which we will document evidence to be collected is it will be marked typically with an identifier, such as a number. We have what we call placards. They look like small plastic tents that have numbers on them, and we will typically put those next to an item of evidence, photograph it with that placard to document how it will be identified later.
That's with regard to items that you can take. What about if there's an item? One of the things that we've been talking about is latent fingerprints or blood smears, that sort of thing. How is it that, do you also put a number by those, or do you put a different sort of designation so that you know that what you have is something that you didn't take but you took a sample of?
Certainly, in some cases, a different type of identifier will be used. In this case, I used letters for those things that were photographed that could not be collected directly.
Let me show you an exhibit. You recognize exhibit 249?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
That is a diagram of a portion of the scene that I responded to.
Which portion of the scene are we talking about?
It appears to be the master bedroom.
When you say
and
appears,
bathroom.
it sounds like you're not sure. Are you sure or are you not sure?
Yes, it is. It's the master bedroom, closet, and bathroom.
Is this a true and accurate depiction of the scene as it existed when you were there and you conducted your work?
Yes, it is.
And how long were you there conducting your work?
We spent over 3 days at the crime scene.
When you say we, it's sort of a royal thing. I'm not interested in what others may have done. How long were you at the scene? Because that's what it really is testifying.
3 days.
All right. And there were others that were there with you, correct?
Yes, there were.
Were there also technicians there with you?
Yes.
And who else would have been there with you assisting throughout this thing?
In what capacity?
In any capacity.
There were several detectives there at various times, officers. There was members of the biology unit of the Mesa Police Department and also another latent print examiner.
When you say the members of biology unit, what do they concentrate on?
DNA evidence.
And in this particular case, you can see that there's a variety of numbers here, and there's also red areas and body and that sort of thing. Is this a true and accurate depiction of all the items that were at the scene at the time that you were there during those 3 days in June of 2008?
Yes.
I move for the admission of Exhibit 249.
Moment, Your Honor.
None.
Exhibit 249 is admitted.
I think we may have already talked a little bit about this, but just get your view of it. This area. The area there, where it says 44 and 24, do you see that there?
Not from here. I apologize. I can't see that.
This area here, do you see it here?
Yes, I do.
What is that area? Tell me a little bit about that area there.
That is the two doors. Those are the two doors leading into the master bedroom. And those are numbers designating items of evidence that were collected from those doors.
With regard to the doors, did you check, or anybody that you were supervising, did anybody check to see what type of lock that was involved there?
There is a photograph of that locking mechanism, and I have...
Okay. Now, after you walk in there and you take a look at this right here, what is this that's marked as 45? I mean, what are we looking at there?
45 is a piece of carpeting that was at the entry to the hallway leading to the master bathroom that had a large area of red staining on it that was collected.
And did you walk down that hallway?
Yes.
And as you walk down that hallway, where did it take you?
To the master bathroom.
And once in the master bathroom, where is the tub in comparison to the door as you walk in?
It would be to your left.
And is that where the body was found?
The body was found in the shower. That was to the left, yes.
And just to make it clear, they had both a bathtub and a shower, correct?
Yes.
Was the body found in the shower, I think is what you said, correct?
Yes.
All right, let's take a look at some photos. Thanks, Steve. Take a look at exhibits 1 through 7 and see if you recognize what's depicted there. What's there?
Yes, I do.
And what areas do those photographs depict?
This depicts the entry and the front of the home that I responded to, the garage, and a portion of the laundry room of that scene.
Are those true and accurate depictions of those areas, again, as they were on the date that you responded and were there?
Yes, they are.
Move for the admission of exhibits 1 through 7.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibits 1 through 7 are admitted. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Actually, we'll make it a 10-minute recess. So ladies and gentlemen, be back in the designated area at 20 minutes till 3, and we will resume promptly at that time. Please remember the admonition. You are excused.
Thanks, Dr. Missouri.
Okay, we are going to be continuing this tomorrow. And okay, this was the opening part of the trial of Jodi Arias, and pretty cool so far. I've played parts of it before, but not the whole thing, so that's what we are doing now. We're still gonna be watching OJ trial, but not every single time though. Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in and hanging out with us tonight. Have a good evening, day, afternoon. See you all tomorrow, and peace.